25th, 2020, and Pledge of Allegiance led by Scott.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start this evening with open forum. Do any board members have announcements?
Jody, do you want to give a little update on the voting, which I know has been very successful?
Well, I can.
I'm sorry, please, Patty. That would be better.
Early voting is going on. It's on all week until Friday. Yesterday, we had 166 people vote, I believe. Could be 165, but whatever. And today we had 186. So every day it gets a little bit more. It seems to be very popular. It's been steady. It's not overwhelming so far. So if you want to take advantage of early voting, please do so.
And do you have weekend hours for that?
We have just 8 to 4 this week, just our business hours.
Okay, great, thank you. And we just learned that we are streaming our meeting live on YouTube tonight. So if you're having trouble with your cable access, you can find us on YouTube.
And the copy of the meeting, which normally takes a day to get processed and go up, will be up immediately. So if you have any friends that missed this exciting meeting tonight and want to watch it starting at 11 tonight or midnight, it'll be there for them.
It'll be ready when you get home.
We can watch it again.
Right, you can watch it again.
That's right.
What did I say?
And we're already early on our agenda, and I would like to wait. We have a public hearing at 7.
There's some
I
public
think there's
members
some
of the public.
people in the audience who have.
Yes, come on up.
Hello.
Hi, Beth.
My name is Beth Perkins, and I'm from 9 Patriot Lane, and I'm tonight here representing a new organization in town called Westford Climate Action. And this group is kind of an amalgamation of many different organizations in town who have as a mission to fight climate change. One of the first actions we took as a group was to advocate for increased renewable energy in our upcoming municipal aggregation contract, which is going to be finalized for January 2021. So we sent out a letter to all of you about that contract. I've had some discussion back and forth with Eric, and we're looking forward to working on that. But tonight we're here because we know that the town manager has asked for authorization to move ahead with a contract to a new energy contract for the town and the school buildings in Westford. And we also believe that renewable energy wasn't a consideration in that contract. And we firmly believe that in every contract, every purchase of energy in town, renewable energy should be, at a minimal, considered. So we should get quotes for additional renewable energy in those contracts. And I know that Tom Clay has asked for that to happen with this contract. I'm not sure, because we're so far along, what can be done, but I heard there might be an addendum that could be added, but we would support that. We would support that we get quotes at a minimum on renewable energy alternatives for the contract that you're going to be looking at authorizing tonight for the town and school buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks,
And
Beth.
we do have that on our agenda under the town manager's report at 9:10. So if we're on time, we'll do that at 9:10, and hopefully everyone will still be here. All right, any other comments from the public? All right, do I have a motion to open our public hearing?
So moved.
Second. Yes.
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 Yes. We have a request from the Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, and Verizon New England, Inc., job number 260291111, to relocate 6 JO poles on Dunstable Road, beginning at a point approximately 626 feet north of the center line of the intersection of Olive Road and continuing approximately 1,704 feet in a northerly direction. And do I have someone from National Grid here? Paulo? Yes, come on up.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Paulo Southwood. I'm an engineer with National Grid. We are reconducting part of that road, and due to the new wires and the new design, we're adjusting some of the poles to straighten the lines, the overhead lines, so we can avoid guying and excess side loads for the new pole line. So that's why we're asking to relocate some of them. And then most of them are moving, one is moving across the street. Most are moving between 15 and 30 feet, either north or south. And they are, I drove by today, I took a look at some of the staked locations, and none of them appear to be like in front of somebody's home, or they're moving to better locations than pretty much all the spots. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you.
So you're not adding any new poles, you're just moving the poles that are there to new locations, is that correct?
That is correct. No new poles.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the
I
board?
I think you already answered my only question, which is, does it affect any homeowners, sight lines, et cetera?
Mhm.
And it sounds like based on where these are, it's not a factor for any residents.
That's correct.
Yes, Mark.
So the relocations, are they the existing poles, or are they new poles going up in new locations?
There will be new poles going up at new locations, and the old poles will be removed.
Are
Okay.
you gonna, are you gonna remove
same
the
time?
old poles at the same time?
You can't do that because we work with Verizon. They have,
You have to
it's
get all the,
close.
you have to get all the wires off the old poles before you can
Correct.
take them down. But I guess, we have had experience in this town where poles from which wires have been moved remain in place
For years.
for years. And so we're requesting you, and you can relay the request to Verizon, that, this is a residential road, it's in a neighborhood, and we want to see the old poles come down as quickly as possible, and so that all the wires are transferred from the old poles to the new poles as quickly as possible.
Okay, I can definitely relay that to Verizon, notify their engineers, and that's the best I can do. But I do believe that the company itself has been working better with our vendors to make that happen. So, thank you. I will let them know.
Is it possible to make it conditional? You don't think
I
so?
don't think you can do that anymore.
Because they would have,
Not
they would
sure.
have the new poles in.
Yeah.
I think that changed,
What do you mean? It would have well, I know that the new poles would go in, but conditional on the other poles coming out within a certain period of time.
I don't believe you can do that.
Okay.
But we can certainly have Verizon in here if the poles don't come down pretty quick.
Yeah, Paula, when do you expect the work to be
Yeah.
done?
I unfortunately don't know the exact schedule for this.
Okay.
Typically, they like to start in the middle of the spring with these projects because they are larger, and typically they go about a month, so give or take.
Maybe, so maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we can have Verizon come in once we know that the work has started and have a separate discussion with them.
So can you notify us when the date, when the work is scheduled?
I can reach out to a scheduler, and they can notify me, and I can get back to the town.
Okay.
I believe I could do that. Yes.
Okay, that would be
Great.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have any questions from the audience? Yes, come on up and just introduce yourself and tell us where you live.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Bell. I am at 98 Dunstable Road, parcel 43, on the diagram there. And we were approached by National Grid, I think it was in May last year, for a grant of easement to move the pole. We have a pole at the end of our driveway on the north side. And we were then told that our pole would be moved 10 feet north. And the letter that we just received is telling us that the pole is due to be moved 10 feet south, which is going to put it smack dab in the middle of our driveway. We spoke with Mr. Thomas Bubb, just yesterday. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I think he was the engineer who originally approached us. And he did write a letter, which I have a copy, confirming that that pole, in fact, is supposed to be moved to the north and not the south.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not going in the middle of your driveway?
Hopefully not. That's kind of why I'm here, just to make sure of that. And he did write a letter with an addendum on it, highlighting that it is,
Phone number was it?
43.
I wrote a comment here saying that I think it shows on the wrong side, but within the job itself and within that letter, it's not gonna be in the middle of the driveway.
But
It's at
it-
the staked location, there's a staked location in front of your house, a wooden stake on the
Yes.
ground, so that's the new location of that pole.
Just from today.
From today, yes.
You just put a stake in the ground
No,
today.
somebody put it there, if it's the same pole.
Okay, but was the stake just put in today?
I'm not sure if it was put
Okay,
in today.
'cause
I went by today, it
originally-
was there.
Okay, originally, the stake was put in and it was put to the north.
Mhm.
But like I said, the letter that we have states that it's moving to the south.
South.
And I just want to make sure that's not the case.
That won't be there.
So,
I double checked on the job itself, the actual design that we have, which is not this sketch, and it's in the right location.
I think
I believe
this,
this is
what we
just-
are approving, if the north and south is correct on that. I think what you were saying is that
Well, that
43, it does
diagram-
look like it's moving south, right?
It's showing south, but I believe that's, in
Right.
his sketch, he put in the wrong page, and it's actually supposed to be on the other side, where it is staked today.
yeah, so I'm not sure we can approve, if we're approving this map, I think we need to see
The right location.
The correct,
the
yeah.
ratification
I
before we can
do,
approve it.
again, I don't know, Mr. Bubb is an engineer for, I believe, National Grid, or he represents them. And he copied me on a letter which he sent out yesterday, to somebody named Carol. And it does have the wording to say our pole is to be moved,
It's in south.
So I think, actually,
Which matches.
which,
Should we continue?
I think we should continue the public
Until-
hearing, and I think that, and we can't approve until we have the correct plan.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna make you come back, we're gonna continue your public hearing.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sure.
Thanks.
We'll do
Thanks for
it
bringing it up.
great,
in 2
thank
weeks.
you.
Thank you.
The
So,
first March
but
meeting.
we have to set a time, so Jody, what time?
do we have anything yet?
Let me just take a peek.
I would say 7:35.
Okay,
Okay.
so, just, so we,
First one in March.
yeah.
Yes, March.
So we'll continue the
10th.
public hearing until March
March 10th,
10th at 7:35.
7:35. Any concerns, Eric? Okay, great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other audience comments, since we're going to continue it? Anything else? Okay, great. Moving on to old and new business. We have an update from Roden Bush Community Center relative to programming and finances. We have Michelle and Leanna.
Is it okay if we sit?
Yes, please.
Please do.
And introduce yourselves, and I
You
think
must
Eric
stand.
has the PowerPoint ready.
Hi, everyone. I am Michelle Sullivan, the Executive Director at the Roden Bush Community Center. And this is Leanna Moran, Co-Chair of our Board of Directors. We're here to update you on the Roden Bush Community Center, show you some slides and photos of the building with program updates. So, first slide. The first slide is a general overview of Roden Bush. And just to give some highlights, the past year we served more than 7,300 individuals. The towns that we served include people that reside in Westford, but also from Chelmsford, Littleton, Tingsboro, and other surrounding towns. And we offer services for all age groups. The 4 areas that we will present tonight will be our child care, community education, community outreach, and a financial update. So the first slide here is our child care programs. And I want to point out that in these 3 programs alone, we have a staff of 42 professionals. Many of them reside in Westford. And I also want to point out that the average tenure of these educators is 10 years, with 5 of them serving for more than 20 years. It's just something we're really proud of. And so the school age program, that's what we brought back after we reopened. And that was in August of 2019. And we're up and we provide transportation from all of the elementary schools with D-Bus. And this is a great benefit to the children and working parents in town. The enrollment is strong in all of our child care programs, and we have many wait lists for many of the age groups. And then we also have community engagement involved with the child care programs. Number one, this past year really being our playground renovation. And phase 1 is complete, and that was at our Frost Playground. And phase 2, we expect to be complete by the fall. We also received a grant from the Joseph Middlemiss Big Heart Foundation for a buddy bench, which will go over at our Old Nab Playground. We have 2 other programs that are community engagement programs. It's a partnership with the Cameron Senior Center called Acorns to Oaks, and it's where the seniors come out to our little ones and they read to them. And then we have another partnership with Bridges with the seniors there. It's an intergenerational sing-along, and that's a great program too. We were recently out there on Valentine's Day.
Can I ask a question, Michelle?
Yes.
Can you let us know how many children are served in the child care programs?
Yeah, I mean, we have about probably 260 families right now.
Okay.
So just a few photos. That was our grand opening of the playground at Frost. And then we have our Acorns to Oaks, and then 2 little ones heading off to Bridges by Epic at Valentine's Day with flowers for the seniors over there. The next slide is our community education program. So with the community education, most of these classes had to be put on hold while we were out of the building for the 18 months during the renovation. But we have brought back some of our longstanding programs, which were gymnastics, art classes, and fitness classes. And those have been well received, along with many new programs. I think you all got our new brochure in the mail. So along with those classes, we also offer room rentals, which have been a big hit with birthday parties and gymnastics parties, sports team events, things like that. We have a great program, the Drop-In Open Gym for preschoolers. And then we've also started the Road and Bush Teen Centers, which was formerly run by WASA, and that's been a great hit for that age group. Coming soon, along with many of the others, a popular one was home firearm safety, and we hope to be taking over the farmers market in the summer of 2020. So
Jody's hoping so too.
yeah, right. I think we'll probably be on the agenda for next month as well. So then these are just some of the activities that are happening. Great art teacher, one of the intergenerational from Bridges, and some of our gymnastics classes. And the room rentals, parties, and a basketball party. So we wouldn't be the community center without some community outreach. And these are programs that Road and Bush provides at little to no cost for the community. And so in addition to the many programs and services that we provide, we've also been offering nonprofit organizations to either rent our rooms for a modest fee or in turn volunteer for us, which has been great. And these are just some of the organizations that have used our space: the Girl Scouts, 4-H, Chelmsford Mothers Club, and on and on. We also produce and distribute the Westford Directory to more than 4,500 households. That's every 2 years. And we offer the free community events that include the annual Halloween parade, Cleanup Day, which is annual, and the semi-annual townwide yard sale. And these are just some pictures of, that was a large Girl Scout event we hosted. Community Cleanup Day, Comcast sponsored that. I think that might have been the Conservation Commission having a meeting in the gym. Another one of the Comcast Cares and a community garden that they provided. And then this was our Halloween parade that ended up indoors this year because of the weather, but it's great to have that space. And our final slide is our financial update. And so our most recent audit was completed in November. And this was an unmodified clean opinion audit. And we had a small gain in fiscal year 19. And we were really just gearing back up. We had only been in the building for half of the year. And that was compared to the large loss in fiscal year 18, which was a loss of $151,000. So really, we're managing our comeback. Our 5-year trajectory is stable. Our fundraising efforts largely in the past year have been focused on the playground renovation. And that is more than just a benefit to the children at Road and Bush. It's really a great benefit to all of the community. So overall, that's an overview of the Roden Bush Community Center. Our doors are open, and we want the town to feel as excited as we are for our future, and that we ask you to stop by if you have any questions, and we're obviously here to answer any questions you might have tonight.
Great, thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
It's exciting to see Roden Bush back to life in that
Thank you.
building.
We are
Thank
very
you.
excited. It is back to life.
Any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Mark?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So just a couple.
Sure.
One, I wanted to know if it's possible for us to get a copy of the audit that was just completed.
Can certainly look into that, yeah, yep.
that'd be great, thank you. And when we were renegotiating the lease prior to the renovation,
Right.
there were the 5-year projections that you referenced.
Yes.
Relative to those 5-year projections, I know you said, things are on the right path.
Yes.
Have you gone back and looked at where you are relative to those 5-year projections that we renegotiated the lease on?
Yes,
And
that's
are you-
including the lease.
Okay, and
Yes,
so you're relative to that 5-year projection
Absolutely,
so far?
yes.
Okay, excellent.
that was all included.
And then the last thing, since the Parks and Rec Department has moved in,
Yes.
have you found that helpful to you for them to be there as far as coordination of activities? I know, we had a committee that didn't
Right.
really, because you guys all were working well together, we really didn't need to
I think we have a
continue
great working relationship.
Good.
We make good roommates.
that. Good, and as far as overlap or redundancies?
I don't find that we've had any of that.
Good.
And I hope that they wouldn't find that either.
Excellent, very good. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
I just want to thank you for including all those pictures in the packet.
Believe me, there were
Made me
so many
smile
I could
today
have
when I was
included.
going through them all.
Thank you.
Any comments from the audience? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you very much.
So our next item is an update following Westford Cat's February 12th, 2020 meeting. Tom?
All right. So this was a meeting called by the members, and I think there was a good and vigorous exchange. There was some communication from some of the financial information. There was a lot of strong opinions from the members themselves, concerns about decisions that the board had made, concerns about transparency, concerns about is the process going to be open going forward? We also spent some time talking about the task force and some of the things we really want to do together. We've had very good engagement on that. We're actually going to have a meeting on that shortly, and so looking forward to digging in on that and looking at what are the things that we can do to find new, better ideas than the ideas that we've had so far to really have the right mix of services for the town in terms of Westford Cat. We continue to recruit for the board, and so are looking forward to welcoming board candidates to the next scheduled meetings. And there's a committee that's looking at bylaws as well. We continue to work, to be in discussions with the news director about continuation of that position. I'm very optimistic that we'll find a good solution for both of us there. And it is a requirement for Westford Cat to provide preliminary financials within 60 days of fiscal year close. That's like today or yesterday or tomorrow. They did need a couple more days to go through those, so I expect that we'll have those in advance of the next meeting, and will be in your packet or be an agenda item, I guess, as the board wishes. I think those are most of the highlights. I know there's some people here from the community, Westford Cat community, that I think have other points that I wish to raise.
Any questions or comments from the board first? Okay, sure. Any comments from the audience?
Hi, I'm Ray Mascola. I'm at 10 Adams Lane, and I'm here to talk about Joyce Crane. First of all, many members of the board here have supported her, and I want to thank you for that. But the reason I'm standing here is unless something immediately happens, her position as multimedia news director ends this Friday, February 28th. On behalf of many of the members that are here and not here, I'm asking that the select board request of the board of directors that existing operating budget funds, currently they're out there for Lauren Horton, who is executive director, and those funds be used to cover the funds for Joyce between now and June, when there's a new board of directors at the annual meeting. And the thought is that the funds exist. If those funds aren't needed, then small amount of reserves could cover the distance between now and June, and she remains in place. If the funds aren't in place, she's gone after Friday. The point is, the next board of directors, it's a clean slate. And that board of directors can take another look at the news director and have a clean view of what happens and make a decision at that time. So this is a real very sensitive, time-sensitive request. The status of the negotiations between the attorneys is very unclear as we sit here on Tuesday night. Time is winding down. So I'm standing here asking this board to take immediate action to help ensure that Joyce Crane remains in place, is retained after Friday as the multimedia news director. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Tom, is there anything you can say about that? I know as a personnel issue, it gets difficult to discuss it in a meeting.
Yes, it's certainly the board's interest and my interest to reach a conclusion that works for both parties. And I think if it's the case that negotiations are ongoing and additional time is required to reach the solution, then I think that's something that we should advocate for and ask for. So that's been on my mind and part of the discussion so far. We're not trying to have there be any unnecessary pressure in the situation. So I'm hopeful that the conversation will resolve successfully, and if it requires more time, I'll certainly advocate for, through the appropriate channels, seeing if we can extend the discussion period.
So is the board, I assume the board is meeting, or certain members of the board are meeting between now and Friday? to clear-
There's sort of daily conversation about sort of what the different positions are as there are in any sort of legal settlement. So it's not the case that there's nothing queued up. There were a bunch of calls today about, different small items here that are part of the negotiation. So I think the board is pretty engaged. And I think there was maybe a little bit of a quiet period. I hope that's been addressed. And certainly if the news director feels like the communication isn't going back and forth, either directly or through channels, let me know. And I want to make sure there's a good, robust communication going on there.
Yes, Christy?
Christy Bates, Pierce Avenue. There are several other CAP members here today, and we'd like to bring several important matters to your attention in addition to what Ray just raised. And one of them is, after much discussion at the membership meeting, which Tom described, that took place on the 12th, the members who were present took a vote of no confidence on the leadership of the Westford CAT Board President. And as far as we know, the Westford CAT Board, has not taken up the issue of the vote of and the chair remains in place. The president remains in place. If the current president is unwilling to step aside, we would like to ask the select board to recommend that he step aside as president to be replaced by the vice president until the next annual meeting when a new board will be selected. We have confidence that the vice president will facilitate the upcoming meetings requested by the membership.
Thank you, Christy. Tom, could you speak to that? I did see that discussion and vote and.
So I'm, my understanding of my role and our role is that the Westford CAT Board is an independent board, an independent entity, and I think this board has asked me to try to be sort of a mediator and a solution finder in terms of finding a way forward, and I think there are a lot of good things here pending that look like that. It was mentioned earlier that a lot of the existing officers will turn over at annual meeting, which will be in June or potentially sooner. So my focus has been making good progress on taking the pressure off the situation by making sure that the news director position stays in place and looking at what the right mix of services are. It is a position that the board can take. If there's a board member that wants to make that motion, they could. But at least it's been my interpretation so far that we respect that board as an independent board, and that the most appropriate role for me has been to try to find solutions to move things forward in a productive way. So I don't know if this board has a different view or has a different opinion of how they'd like me to engage, but I think that there's plenty of good things happening here that are on a good track, and we can get a lot done between now and the next annual meeting, and once the annual meeting happens, it'll be a completely new slate of leaders.
So we can't possibly have the right to ask to tell him to step aside even if we wanted to.
Right. The bylaws say that
Yeah.
it's a 2/3 vote of the existing board members,
Of the Westford Cat Board.
the Westford Cat Board.
Yeah.
So we don't have authority to do that.
Is he also the acting executive director at this time?
The staff, I think there was a little bit of confusion. So there was certainly never any pay, there was never anybody stepping into any kind of permanent role. There was a liaison role between the board and the staff during this interim period while we're looking for an executive director. That position has been changed to the vice president from the president.
Okay.
So at this point, Nancy Burns is the routine point of contact, and I think feedback so far has been that that's been a pretty productive, way to operate, and so I would expect that to continue, that mode to continue.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with what your role is, and given that we don't have any authority to do anything else other than continue to promote everything that the community is looking to have done, which it sounds like progress is being made. I certainly don't go to those meetings and have no idea whether it's appropriate to make a call, but clearly there are changes that need to be happening, and unless things are not happening to either your satisfaction or everybody else's satisfaction here, I'm not sure what other pressure we can apply, other than to continue to advocate for making this thing right and better than it is right now.
So, recognizing that our board doesn't have the authority to push the president out, I think the communications I've seen have questioned the timing of meetings and the members' ability to call a meeting and when that meeting would happen, how quickly that meeting would happen, and if at that meeting such action could happen, reflecting the will of the members. Do you have information about that, Tom? I mean, does it have to wait until June, or do the members have the authority to call a meeting sooner and use a process to get the result they want? I'm not comfortable with our board forcing some action on that board, but I definitely want the Westford Cat members to be able to exercise all of their rights and to move the organization forward if that's what they're choosing to do.
So the bylaws absolutely allow calling for an additional meeting. I know that Diane sent a note about that earlier. We can talk about that tonight. I am planning to meet with many of you tomorrow and would be happy to talk about it in some detail then to make sure that what you're requesting is something that we get in the proper channel to occur. But specifically to the leadership or any officer, the way that an officer gets removed under the bylaws is that the board has to take that vote. So logistically, someone on the board would need to, raise that issue and make that motion. So far, I don't, acting on behalf of this board, I don't feel like it's an appropriate thing for me to take that action. So we could have another meeting. The will could again be expressed to the board. And if an individual board member takes that position, makes that motion, then that vote could take place. I guess I feel like as long as we're getting positive things happening, as long as the working relationship with the staff is improving, as long as we're doing the hard work of looking at the task force role about what the full range of options we can take here to get to a sustainable place, which I think is the right discussion, an exciting discussion to have. I feel like I'd rather put my energy there or continue to have the focus of the energy of the organization there, because I think that's all pretty productive and important stuff we need to do. So that's the mechanics of it, though. So it absolutely could be that we can call an additional meeting. It absolutely could be that meeting, the membership could express their interest to the board again. But the way it actually has to happen, according to the bylaws, is that the board itself has to take that vote.
Okay, so then you have the layer of needing to replace board members if the members wish to have a board member make that motion and no current members make the motion, but then to do that takes more time, and by then we'll be pushing up to June.
I feel like if we put all of our energy on getting a great slate of motivated and excited board members teed up, coming to the meetings, getting some continuity ramp up, they're certainly invited to all the meetings that we have scheduled. I think that would be a productive outcome, and I think we can make a lot of progress over the next couple of months. So,
Okay.
I guess my concern is if there's a logjam in place, we have to break the logjam. If you're able to make progress around that log, then I think That's what we want to happen, as opposed to creating more tension. We want to get rid of tension, so if we can work around it, that's the way to do it.
Kathy, do you want to speak?
Hi, Kathy Ricketson, 2 Randolph Circle. So just to be clear, when we were asking for this board to just act in your supervisory role to make recommendations, we voted no confidence, and then we expected the board to take it up. So we were hoping that the board would then take it up. When we didn't hear that they took it up, on February 5th, 10 members of Westford CAT requested a special meeting within 45 days as allowed by the bylaws, and a board representative initially denied the request, which is not allowed. If the 10 members of the membership ask for a meeting, then a meeting has to be called within 45 days according to the bylaws. So again, we're kind of just asking for the select board to affirm the rules, to take up the request of the membership. It was hard to vote no confidence. That was a difficult thing to do in our meeting, but we are trying to break the log jam, so we kind of had to stand up and be counted like we do in town meeting, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. It's not personal, it's just we're trying to break a log jam. It's very well put. So we've asked for this meeting, and there seemed to be a misunderstanding by the board representative that we had the right to do so. So these are kind of the things we have to fix. I think a new board will pay more attention to it. But I want to make this really clear. We're asking for these meetings because we're hoping to keep the lines of communication open. And it hasn't been easy as we work together on the financial constraints that led to the decision to terminate the professional news director, Ms. Crane, and the loss of our executive director, Ms. Horton. So that's why we come before you tonight. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. So, go ahead.
They've requested a special meeting on February 5th. So under the bylaws, that you have 45 days to hold that. So March 5th, somewhere around March 20th.
Right.
There needs to be a meeting scheduled? And
Yes,
is that going to happen, or?
So I will clear this up. It absolutely is the right of the membership to call a meeting, so you absolutely can call this meeting, and it needs to be scheduled. I think that, and unfortunately I have not seen the specific request. I think that what it looked like was the request had been tied specifically to discussion of personnel matters, which I think, in any case, if you're willing, I would be happy to talk about with you tomorrow and just make sure we've got the clear agenda of what you're trying to do, what you'd like the meeting to be for, and then make sure it gets scheduled.
So, to clarify.
You need to tell us who you are.
Who you are,
Diane.
where you live.
Hello, Diane Lewis.
We know who you are.
122 Depot. The issue about replacing or hoping to get new board members could be resolved if we scheduled an annual meeting and moved it up from June. And that was one of the requests that has been made.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a lack of confidence, and we voted a lack of confidence in the chair and the board members also, we want to move forward with making progress. And to be quite honest, we cannot get the candidates that we would like because people are saying they don't want to work with this board, the existing board that we have. So that's a detriment to getting the talent and the skills and the energy that we want. And it really doesn't make any sense. So we're trying to move forward, get additional talent, get the skills, get the energy level, and make a new Westford CAT. And people are pushing back, saying, well, if the board members are still there, and if the chair is still there, we don't want to work with those people, quite candidly. So that's one of the hurdles. So we're in a catch-22.
So I think Andrea's point is to, and I think I would echo that, in terms of our board, and our message for you to represent us, to get the meeting scheduled, to let the members, work with them to have the meeting that they're asking for, and to.
So there are two, it gets complex according to the bylaws, as we've all recently learned. So one of the questions was having a special member meeting. Mm-hmm. And members do have the right according to the bylaws, to request a member meeting, a special member meeting at any time. So our request was put in as, I think Kathy mentioned, February 5th, and it was denied. So that's one issue, which I think I hear will be revisited. Over and above that, however, the request was to schedule an annual meeting, which would then allow the members to to discuss membership and board membership and pick a new slate, to be quite honest.
So there's a number of things that have traditionally happened in the annual meeting. That was the chance to look at the audited financials after the auditors had a chance to review them. And also there were a number of reports that were put together. So there could be two different requests that you could ask the board to take up. One would be to basically have the function of that meeting be all the pieces, but try to do that as soon as possible. We could ask the auditor to do the work earlier potentially and move that date up. You can make a separate request, which would be to sort of change the nature of what annual meetings typically
You
been.
can have more than one annual meeting. According to the bylaws, you can have more than one. So you could retain the June meeting for your financials and for the reports, but schedule another meeting earlier in the year, April, end of April, May, whatever works, for a different business.
But it seems to me that the first step in this, Diane, is that you need to get your special members meeting scheduled between now and March 20th, saying that's the 45 days. And at that meeting is where these issues come up for discussion, and then you can determine at that meeting whether you're going to set an annual meeting in April or May before June, and any other issues you want to talk about. So I think it's a two-step process.
So was this, you mentioned the board denied the special meeting request?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole board voted to not?
The board didn't review it, and I'm happy to take this up tomorrow and make sure that if there's any kind of procedural question, we get around that, because you absolutely can.
Members got an email, a response.
No, I know, and I've seen that since, but
Okay.
just to Mark's question, it
Oh,
wasn't
oh.
the board didn't
Right.
decide to deny it.
I gotcha.
Right.
The person who received that said, I think this is out of order relative to what can be discussed,
Okay.
but we can fix that because we can change what the request is, and so we'll do that. I guess, I just like to focus on things we can do. We absolutely can work on building a slate, we absolutely can. I mean, June is, if that's the latest possible case, maybe we move it up, but even if it's June, it'll be almost a complete turnover, certainly a turnover of the officers that have, been the most problem and, most heavily discussed, I guess. So I think we can work on that. We can work on building a great board that would not have to serve at the same time as some of the people that I think have created some concerns. In order for the annual meeting to get called, I think the board would have to take that vote and call it early. It's certainly something that should be discussed, but I can't, as one member representing the select board, guarantee that independent board will in fact do that. But I can work very hard to make sure that, the candidates that are excited and want to add, value can get as much continuity as possible, come to the meetings in the interim as possible. So that's where my focus has been.
And I'll read a last, do you have a?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, my last statement. In order to stabilize some of the turmoil, and we've probably discussed this, and restore staff morale, members are suggesting that the select board recommend that there be a thorough and not rushed search for a new executive director, and that executive director will not be named until after the annual meeting when new board members will be elected. If the board wishes to hire temporary help other than the current staff, then the position should be filled by someone who will not be applying for the executive director position. We voted no confidence for a reason. We look forward to a new board considering more options where staffing and the news are concerned.
Thank you, Diane. I think, what I would want to convey to your board, Tom, at Westford Cat is to, hopefully all your board members can listen to the community members, and I know you are very focused on moving forward, and I hope the rest of your board can embrace that and recognize if some of them are not going to be on the board after June, that they can help facilitate the transition and, accommodate meeting requests, not deny them on technicalities and all of that. I don't want to get involved in the day-to-day operations over there, but I definitely want, your whole board to understand our.
I would just,
There's room at the table.
I think that what I just want to convey is that, like you said, that the board be open right now, that they make sure that they are that their lines of communication with the membership are open, that they have the opportunity to engage, to express their opinions, and whether it's at a, formal meeting or not that, has to be called or something in accordance with the bylaws, I think that there needs to be some flexibility here and not, sort of strict compliance. I have 45 days, so I'm going to hold the meeting on the 45th day, so to speak. I mean, if we want to move this entity forward, which I think we all want to move this entity forward and into sort of a new phase and new growth, then we need to do as much as possible to facilitate folks communicating with one another and talking with one another, and all for the same goal, which is, a healthy Westford, a healthy, productive Westford cat. So that's the message I want you to convey.
Understood.
Great. Paul, and I think if it's all right, we'll wrap it up so we can, or did you have a comment too, Chris? Okay, and then we'll wrap it up. I think Tom has heard us.
I think he's heard us.
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Fassbender. And I just want to say, the encouraging part about all this is there are a lot of people interested in putting effort into this. Part of the problem we've had is the Westford Cat bylaws are not exactly intuitively obvious when you read them. And part of the problem is the members can call a special meeting, but they can't vote on directors at a special meeting. The board can call an annual meeting. So you have to have the board on board to be able to move forward according to the bylaws. And I think part of the problem is that the two sides seem to have not converged on a strategy yet. There was a lot of sense of urgency that we sensed from the board in the November-December timeframe when they raised the problem of finances and said basically the way we know how to solve that is to cut costs. Several times in the meetings since, they've made the comment, we are not a fundraising board. And from where I come from, if you are not going to solve a problem by cutting costs, hopefully you solve it by raising revenue. So I feel there should be more of a sense of urgency going on the fundraising side. We talked about that at the meeting and so forth. The task forces originally proposed seemed to be more strategic and long-term, and let's look at the financials and a bunch of things. And from my point of view, great, do that, but set up a separate group that's very short-term focused. Let's go out and start raising money, because regardless of what the long-term task force says, it's not going to hurt to have more money in the checkbook. So that kind of thing doesn't have to wait. And also, by reading the bylaws, there are lots of other ways to turn over the board. Any director can resign whenever they want. If there are a few people on there who say, I'm not a fundraising director or whatever, I will make room for people who have different skills to get on the board. And as we also talked about, you don't have to be on the board to contribute. If you have a fundraising hit team or something like that, they don't have to be directors. Why wait? Get them started.
Great.
So, I mean, there are a lot of things we can do if we're all on the same side, pulling on the oars in the same direction.
Yeah, those were excellent suggestions at the meeting, and we're taking your advice and taking this task force and basically breaking it into two. One was short-term fundraising, and the other looking at the longer-term issue. So thanks for bringing that up, and that is the plan. And if other people would like to contribute, please reach out to me. I know that some of the people on the task force are here tonight, Kathy and Diane and Christy and maybe some other folks. So if you want to reach out to them, if that's more comfortable, there are lots of ways to engage, and that committee's going to get up and going quick.
Great.
Since
Thank
we
you,
have
Paul.
viewers at home, it's really important to point out that there are a lot of people who are good at fundraising in Westford, and we could sure use some help from some of the people who've shown the skills in other areas to come and work on this effort.
Thank you.
Paul.
Yep.
Chris, we'll let you have the last word here.
Maybe. Dr. Pony Show, Song and Dance. Chris Kuntz, Texas Road. Tom, I was confused and just basically have a question. You mentioned that the board is currently welcoming new candidates or looking for new candidates and going to welcome them as new board members at the next board meeting?
I think the intention is to have people who are candidates who've been in the interview process come. You raised some good points at the meeting about sort of the sequencing of needing to take a vote if we're going to change the size of the board. I think there's sort of a question about whether the board side really needs to change or whether it's just the composition that needs to change. So we want to promote as much engagement as possible, at least I do, and we want to make sure we've got some transition since there'll be so many turnover of people. But at least what I'm thinking is that people who've put themselves forward and are interviewing would come and join as observers until we go through the change.
And as somebody else had mentioned, I think we're a little bit, we'd like to encourage other people to be applying for the board, and some people aren't willing to do that yet because they're looking at it. So I think, before welcoming any new people, let's get a broader spectrum of those who are interested, because some people who are not willing to volunteer at this point may have a more suitable background or a richer background or more skills that could be very helpful in the future.
I think that's right, and I think many of you know Nancy Burns. I think it's Nancy at nancyburns.com. She's the nominating chair. I think she's got a very good relationship with many folks here. So if people don't have an interest in serving with the existing group but would like to join the basically brand new board that'll be there in June, please contact her. They can absolutely go through the process in the way that's most comfortable for them.
Right.
So
Okay.
they're invited.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, well, I think we will continue discussing this.
Okay.
And we'll look forward to the update, and hopefully meeting will be scheduled and we can announce that at an upcoming select board meeting. Thank you to everyone who showed up and spoke about that. Next on our agenda is a request to approve the transportation hardship policy for employment, medical services, and necessary errands for Westford residents with transportation hardship. Jennifer?
Hey, good evening to the Board of Selectmen, to Jody, to Eric. Our COA board took a vote at our last January, our 15th board meeting. And one of the things that we would like to do is, one of the things that we see with our social services is that we have residents that come in that are experiencing transportation hardships. And the way that our contract with the LRTA is set up, we are able to assist those that we serve through the Cameron Senior Center that are age 55 and older. And there's been situations that if we would have been able to have a little bit more flexibility in the age bracket that we serve, especially those in hardship situations, we would be able to assist residents in crisis situations, rather than make a situation more difficult because there's no other transportation option for them. So we would like to ask the Board of Selectmen to consider adding an additional clause that would allow our COA to be able to provide transportation to those that are experiencing transportation hardships that have been screened and deemed that need transportation, an opportunity to be able to use our van service. Recognizing that our priority is to serve those that are disabled, that are over age 55, that need assistance to day programs, medical appointments to the senior center, and other critical basic need errands. And we would prioritize those particular needs before we would be able to extend our transportation program to those that are under age 55 that are experiencing a transportation hardship.
Yes.
I guess, is there any cost in terms of how this, in terms of other budgets? Did you need more money, or is this going to be covered within the current?
It would be covered within our current budget. We did get a 2.5% increase from the LRTA, so we would, but as I've stated, I think I'd sent a memo to all of you all, or through the town manager's office, that we would, of course, encourage those residents that we would be providing transportation for that have a transportation hardship. We would encourage them to, if they're able, to follow the same donation policy that we currently highly encourage our current ridership, which is a $3 for within town, and then outside or contiguous towns, it's $5, and then outlying towns, it's $8, and that's round trip.
Well, I guess the point is that what's good about this, as I understand it, is we're offering a critical service to some individuals at no more cost to taxpayers, right? So if that's the case, it's, to me, a no-brainer.
And again, you know, these individuals would have to be screened and deemed have a transportation hardship through our social services staff.
Understood.
And then we would continue to work with those clients on a more permanent transportation resolution.
Yes, Andrea?
Is there particular criteria that an individual has to meet in order to be considered as, you know, having a hardship, or is it a sort of case-by-case determination?
I would say it would be a case-by-case determination with a high consideration of income instability.
Any other questions?
No, sounds like a good
Sounds
thing to do.
So do I have a
I'll
motion?
move that the board vote to include residents age 54 and under who have been deemed to have a transportation hardship the opportunity to utilize the COA van service based on availability of the COA van schedule.
Second.
Any other discussion from the board? Any comments from the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next we have, we'll consider amendments to the Westford Fire Department ambulance billing collection policy. Chief Barg and Chief Britko.
Hi, Chief.
From our discussion at FinCom this year, doing the budget development and ambulance enterprise, one of the things that came up, they want us to look into and do a survey about billing. They feel like we might be losing some money in the co-payments and deductibles. So we did do a survey. I think it should be in packet from other towns, local towns. But what they do, it seems like everybody, except 2 towns, bill for anything besides the insurance for residents, which would be Andover and North Andover. But everybody else at least bills the deductibles and co-payments. There are some that do send them to collections. The one we have, which was actually what we call option B, which was back in 2014, town council prepared 2 set of policies. At the time it was voted in option A, not to seek payment for this. This one is written, it's vetted by town council to bill the residents for the deductible or the copay. It would not affect anyone on Medicare or anything like that. It would just be the copay, and they would not go to collections.
Any questions or comments here?
So I was trying to find when we created that policy back in 2014 and why we didn't go with B at the time, and other than the fact that I think we just wanted to get going on something.
We never had a
harder than we had before.
We didn't have anything written down, and I think the billing company at the time was looking for something for, just so they had some direction to go on how to handle stuff instead of calling every time they had questions about stuff.
I think it was, let's get this up and going, and then we'll come back to it at a later date.
Yeah, no, I think it sounds.
Here we are 6 years later.
No, I think it's reasonable, especially,
Yeah.
We'll start with this, and then we can have a discussion about sending to collections at some other point, once we kind of get going on this and see what the default rate is on not collecting the deductible.
Right. I mean, the only ones with residents that we do send to collections are the ones that are direct paid.
Right.
So, and that was from the other policy.
Any other questions or comments here? All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And the motion is to approve the updated policy, is that right, Jody?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any comments from the audience? All those in favor?
Aye. Thanks very much for doing it.
Thanks.
All right, next up we have Jeff Morissette, to consider approval of the Community Preservation Act grant agreement to offer continued support for the Helena Crocker Residences project.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Morissette, your Director of Land Use Management. I'm just here to talk briefly about the Helena Crocker Residences. As you may recall, these residences, they're part of a proposal to construct 18 units of age-restricted, affordable dwelling units at 60 Littleton Road. The project benefits from approvals from the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, and the Conservation Commission. And through our town council, it also benefits, most importantly, from $1.5 million of CPA funds that the October 2019 town meeting authorized. And through our town council, we received requests from the project applicant and developer. They're looking for some assurances that the earmarked monies from that town meeting will be kept safe and remain allocated for that purpose until such time as they can secure the remainder of their funding from the state. Do I think that any vote or an agreement is needed? I'm not an attorney, I don't think so. I think it would take another town meeting action to sort of change that. However, if the applicant is looking for some assurances from this board and it could help to close the deal and have the project move forward, you know, we're all for that. We totally recommend that. We're supportive of the project and the request, and we think it makes sense to offer some agreement or vote. They asked for an agreement that was without limitation, though. And on principle, we think there should be at least some time frame. We think 3 years is a reasonable time frame to start. And that's, I think within that time, you probably get a sense of whether or not they will have secured their funding. And if they don't, or they're close to making good faith progress, I think a future select board could certainly grant an extension as needed. So that's the short version.
Great. Any questions here?
I mean, town meeting approved it. I would never want to second guess that anyway, so, yeah,
Right.
I think.
Nope. But I do agree we shouldn't have it there waiting for 20 years and have that
No,
money committed.
There needs to be some
Yeah.
limitation on it, so.
Any comments from the audience? All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to support the motion as written. Can I do that?
Talking.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, why don't we read it, Tom?
Okay. I move the board vote to execute the Community Preservation Act grant agreement to offer their continued support for the Helena Crocker Residences project by agreeing to commit until February 25th, 2023, the $1.5 million of Community Preservation Act funds as appropriated by the October 28th, 2019 special town meeting for the acquisition, construction, development of 18 units of age-restricted affordable housing at 60 Littleton Road.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, next up, we have Bill Harmon, the chair of the Healthy Westford Committee, with a request from the Healthy Westford Committee to reduce their membership and a brief update.
Good evening.
Good evening,
I'm
Bill.
Harmon. I live on Old Colony Drive, and our committee is having a problem with the quorum requirement. In fact, just a month ago, we didn't know how the quorum would be calculated. In other words, we have around 8 actual members, and then we found that there's another list of more members, which are, what would you call them, vacancies, I guess. Well, we got the answer at the town hall, town manager's office, that actually we do have to use that longer list. And so under those conditions, we realized that we just wouldn't be able to have any meetings. We wouldn't be able to have a quorum. And so I've submitted a list of names. We got together to bring to you tonight a list of members that we recommend we would request that be the official list. Did you get that, Eric?
It's on the screen for you.
It's right there, okay. That would be a list of 9 members. It includes one new member, Alex Hilton. He's new to Westford and is agreeing to be a member, and we've met him, he's a good guy. And it also includes reinstating Jeff Stevens from the health department here. He was a member, but I guess it expired or something, but he wants to be an active member, so this is our request. Would you also like to hear a little bit of what goes on in this committee?
First, any questions about the proposed?
I guess you're dropping some off. Are there any, when you first formed this committee, it was almost like a committee of committees. Everybody who had a vested interest in it in town had some stakeholder. And so what are we removing for stakeholders in this process? Not names, but other committees or
The Recreation
departments?
Department was originally appointed to be a committee.
School committee.
No, I'm sorry. That name just comes to mind, but that name. Yeah, Michelle Collette, that's right, so that's one. We also had a school committee member, but who's not a member right now. So those are the 2, but there's more than 2.
Is
forget
pedestrian
what all
safety on here? I think they used
Well,
to
but
be.
Don Gaylor is our
Okay.
delegate, so he's covered, or we're covered.
I don't actually remember the others. I'd be kind of-
I do have the list.
I have the current membership on the board.
You know, you're bringing up a really good point, because could use some help stimulating memberships from those other departments. That would be really great. We've tried, but we haven't been able to get any yet, and maybe you have a different point of view and a different
Well, it just seems to me that if hypothetically the school committee or rec department, that we should ask them they want to be removed before we remove their voice, that's all.
It's a reasonable point to check in with those committees where the committee has turnover and the rest of the committee may not have realized they've lost a voice.
So can I just step back for a second? So what is the charge of the committee? Because that may help determine the makeup of the committee and whether that charge has changed.
Committee to work with pedestrian safety committee, police, fire, engineering, highway, health, and other departments to investigate ways to promote Westford as a healthy community through policies, programs, and infrastructure planning.
So that
Or
charge,
15
I don't know if that's still
members.
the right charge, but that charge seems to me that you would want those other committees on them. So if they're not on them, it kind of makes either the charge isn't right or the committee membership isn't right. So I'm just wondering, Bill, whether if you were to kind of look at the charge again, is that still the same charge you would
We've been
want?
looking at it, and my opinion is that we can carry out that without having them being official members, because we do coordinate with those organizations. It's a good thing to do, and we do.
Does the charge still reflect the work that's being done right now?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, they could be ad hoc non-voting members and whom you could include in your meetings, you know, when it's discussing something that has to do either with schools or rec and Parks and Rec or whatever else, you know, as opposed to being voting members and therefore making it difficult to get a quorum.
Yeah, and.
Or ex officio members, that way.
Yeah, so now that, you know, and this is way past. what
The
I
2
did.
minutes I allowed.
Yeah, but, you know, so the original committee membership had these other departments and committees on it, so do you basically have to disband? Like somehow those, they have to come off before he can name those others, correct?
You mean they were reserved seats for all those
Yeah.
departments and committees?
Well, you're asking to reduce the number also.
Yes,
I mean,
it would
because
be-
according to the charter, it's 15 full members and 1 alternate is what we approved originally. So you're asking to reduce the 15 down to 9. So, and currently,
9.
Yeah.
Well, this includes one new one. so
and 1
we
new
have
person,
really
the
7,
names that
because-
you had up there
Yeah.
before.
But it does say potential partners, it doesn't say they have to have
Right.
reserved seats. I think it's kind of a courtesy to say, hey, school committee, you've had, you know, perhaps turnover since we formed this commission. And with president safety, we've changed planning board member and school committee member because the board's changed, and we, you know, initiated that. I'm not sure if there's been any outreach, and perhaps there just isn't interest, but
So do we want to make a decision tonight, or do we want to delay this until our next meeting and ask for outreach to those committees or boards that had been represented that are no longer represented here?
I personally don't have an issue with 9. I think 15 is kind
Yeah.
of silly. But I would like a recommendation of which departments or committees outside of resident, you know, non-committee residents that you would like on there, so that at least we have some record of who's representing and why. And that, I don't, you know, that certainly can come from you, but.
Well, those are the same committees and departments that you mentioned, Jody, I think, aren't they?
Right, but your list of people, I don't think are
would
all
include that.
falling into
So
these.
if you wanted 9, who, you know, what committees or departments would you want to be officially part, like we always have.
Oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying? And then if you want ad hoc ones like was stated, then, you know, you could have those as well, but.
Well, I think, though, are you suggesting that we dismiss some of the active members we have?
No.
No, I'm just saying, so if you're 9, what's the makeup of the 9? Do you want a police representative as one of the 9? Do you want Parks and Rec as one of the 9? Do you want
Currently, there's 2 who are staff, town staff, and the other 7.
And not currently, but in this 9.
Well,
In this line,
yeah,
2
I
are
did-
town staff.
Yeah.
Currently,
Okay.
that's right, my proposal.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm asking is, as opposed to the names, what's the committee representation? And then you can put the names to it, if that's what this is. I don't know what you're asking in particular.
Well, I think originally, as it was set up, there was a school committee rep, a Parks and Recreation rep, and a Pedestrian Safety Commission rep. So the Pedestrian Safety Commission rep is still there.
Yep.
Parks and Rep and the school committee are not represented right now in the list.
That's right.
So I think probably what you should do, just my suggestion, is reach out to Parks and Rec and School Committee, ask them if they want to be part of this committee.
We've been doing that.
Okay, and if their answer is no,
So the answer is, well, I'll consider that.
okay, but
Tell them they have to give you a decision.
they have
otherwise
to
they're
make a
gonna be off.
decision, yes or no, or do you want just to be, ex officio members, which allows you to come when it is pertinent and to you and what's being discussed, which is perfectly fine, as opposed to being a voting member and you've still got 9 members and hopefully you meet your quorum. So I think that's the issue, is that you reach out to those 2 committees, the Parks Commission and School Committee, and then find out what they want to do. And I know that there's
Parks and Rec.
And I know Parks and Rec is behind you, so.
No.
Give him an answer.
So we have a meeting next Monday, and I might get in trouble for this, but I will put it on the agenda for us to discuss. And if you'd like to attend, it's 6:30 at the lovely Road and Bush building on the 3rd floor. Thank you.
All right, thank
The
you.
thing that I was going to comment on is that we do have a scheduled meeting before your next meeting, the next select board meeting. So I would rather if we could actually have a real meeting on that date.
So you need us to change it tonight so you can actually have a quorum and have a real meeting, right? That's the issue.
I don't mind having 9. I'm not against 9. I completely support 9. I would just like to know what the committee makeup would be at some point. So, if we can just say, let's make it 9, then as long as you get 5,
Yes,
whomever
that's the
they
way I
are.
see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the suggestion is basically to approve this, but maybe ask that Bill get some sort of hard answer out of Parks and Rec and School Committee about whether they want to have a regular official role or not.
Right.
And I
Is that
think,
what you're
I
thinking?
think I see your point, yeah.
No, just
Just to say I'll consider.
exactly what is the committee membership you want, so that.
We don't want to take away their role if they're
If
so.
they want to be part of it,
Newly.
But they got to show up.
I know, they have to show up.
Statement is what we've already been trying.
Okay.
But, all right, so
Judge,
I'll start partner, and I'll say that, just to say.
I'm a drop dead date.
Okay.
One more thing, and I think they're gonna vote this bill too before you leave, but I also need which position's gonna expire on what date, because,
Oh.
we kind of rotate that, and so you need to work that out for me too.
Maybe
And I
you
can
or
help you
Eric.
with that, but,
Yes.
I should
Okay.
work together.
but if you wanna reduce it to 9, at least they can hold a meeting.
so I think we should do that, and then you can work with them
Yeah.
to figure out spots and
Expiration dates
terms.
and stuff.
I was wondering what you were
Okay.
frowning about, but that's.
I'll make a motion to
Family.
reduce the membership to 9.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Do
Thank
you want,
you.
I think you had a 30-second update from your committee
Would you
too,
like to do
right?
that?
Did you have
Well-
a brief update of what you have been doing?
I'm going to try to make it really short. We do walking, healthy eating, and healthy environment. And there's a lot of subjects, but walking is my favorite. And of course, as you know, there's a lot of trails in Westford, but the trails are fairly narrow, most of them. And so around schools, we're making them wider. And I think we've done a great job over at NAB School.
Yeah,
And, you know about that?
I do,
Yeah, we, in the school walkthrough, we took a little.
yeah. And it's less, yeah.
So anyway, there's one quick example.
Great. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to our 8 o'clock item. We have the annual town meeting, which is scheduled for March 28th. Mark your calendar. And we have several articles to review and vote whether or not to recommend this evening. So we'll start with something? You may go.
Well, so also you're setting the order, and we kind of hope you like the order because we've got everything set to go for you to sign it tonight, but technically you're setting the warrant, setting the order, signing the warrant, and reviewing articles, so.
Excellent. Do you want to read through them, or should I?
Sure, whatever you want.
You can go ahead.
Okay, so the motions, and I think Dan's also here to assist. Oops, excuse me, and some little. All right, so the first one is unpaid bills, and we have none, so we will make a motion to dismiss. Do you want to sit down, Dan, or you? Sit with me.
Oh, he's older now.
He's older now. You recommend dismissal?
It's Dan's birthday today.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Birthday, Dan.
We sing to him?
We won't sing to him.
We already did.
We'll move right along. So we have, do you need a vote to recommend to
Sure.
dismiss Article 2?
Yep.
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the second article is to amend the wage and classification plan. And basically this year, as you know, I'm proposing to create a DPW. And so there are some non-union wage and classification changes related to that. We did meet with the Personnel Advisory Committee. They did vote unanimously in favor of the recommended changes.
I'll move to recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Any comments from the audience? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next one is capital. You did hear that at, I believe, your last meeting with the FinCom, but no vote was taken, so I'm asking you to take a vote on that.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Any comments from the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then Article 8 is to appropriate funding to design and construct a new municipal building at 51 Main.
Do we have the budget for that yet?
We do not have updated figures.
Okay. This is a financial article, though, that will,
Can we wait
I'd
for,
like to hold
I'd
on.
like to wait until we get updated financial information.
Okay, I don't know if you'll have that before March 6th, which is when the FinCom book
So I
goes
thought
out.
Tom
but
said we was going to have that before the end of the month or
Yeah.
shortly thereafter.
That's what he said, and it's
Yeah.
February.
Yeah, so I don't want to take a vote until I know
All
what.
right, so it is on Thursday with the FinCom too, so you can revisit it then if you want.
If they have numbers. I'm
Okay.
personally not going to take a vote if we don't have numbers.
Christina?
Yeah, Christina Green, Chesapeake Drive. I also wanted to make a comment that I've been watching for the public meeting on this building, and I have yet to see it. I reached out to Tom the other day, and he hasn't gotten back to me, so.
I think it's going to be March 11th.
It was going to be this week. We've pushed it back, I think, probably because of the dollars.
Right,
Aren't in yet.
Right, yeah.
right.
Yeah, so there has to be. He's
Yeah.
committed to it too.
It's just
Right.
getting very late.
Yep.
It is, but
Yep.
yes. So yeah, we may need to wait, if, depending on the board, until
Okay.
town meeting if we can't get it in.
Okay.
Get it voted before the book.
What was the answer?
March 11th is going to be a public meeting about the new town center building, the proposed town center building at 51 Main.
And I think he's got other, I don't think that's the only one he was planning. He mentioned there's gonna be more than one.
I haven't heard about any additional ones. I know that's the only date
Okay,
he's
well,
discussed
we're not
with
going
me.
to solve it tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so Article 19 was a citizen petition, or is a citizen petition to assess the cost effectiveness of outsourcing ambulance services, and the proponent said she wants to make a motion to dismiss the article at town meeting, so she's not here tonight.
Okay.
Do we need to vote that we're not recommending that?
Sure.
We should
Just let it,
let it go and let her move to, it's the petitioner, if she wants to get up and move to dismiss it, then she can, and then we can take our action then.
Okay. And so Article 21 is a citizen petition for an additional all alcohol on premises license at 478 Groton Road, and the petitioner is here.
Gary, would you like to speak?
Good evening, I'm Gary LaBelle at 2 Meadowview Lane. I am seeking a liquor license on 487 Groton Road.
Is it, can I just, it says 478
Yeah,
here.
I'm sorry. I've been all over that area. That was 478, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just didn't know which one we were talking about.
No, it's 478 Groton Road. It's a piece of property that I've recently acquired through family, and I'm looking to develop it. And the liquor license is going to be a pivotal part of which way I proceed with going in the direction of the process of the land. So we are looking to put up, my wife, Mary Jo, had owned a diner for 17 years. So we are looking to bring back the diner in some type of fashion with a liquor license. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Like I said, we're in the beginning stages of everything. I know it's a long process to get the liquor license, but as of right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern with land and which way to go. So I figured if we get the liquor license approved, I know which way to move forward with the property.
Questions or comments from the board?
So I have a couple. First of all, how is this zoned?
This is IA.
I have no idea what that means.
It's industrial.
He doesn't need a variance to do that.
I don't need a variance for the property.
Thanks.
Prior planning board.
What's that?
As your prior planning
Yeah, so I
board member.
was hoping somebody would answer. And then we just denied an all liquor,
That was a package store.
right, I understand.
Right.
But we denied it to go over by the Dunkin',
That's right.
right? So I'm trying to figure out why we would deny that and now add one here.
So that was a
I know it's a
package
different purpose. I
store. This
understand.
is a restaurant.
Understand?
And that was, you had one license available, and you had two applications, and
Right.
you chose to give it to the other applicant.
Right.
This is a citizen petition, which he has a right to do, to take it
understand.
to town meeting. And so that's why you're hearing this.
Okay.
I have a question, Pat. Did we not, several years ago, issue, I think, 2 liquor licenses to property that is undeveloped?
Yes.
And-
Yeah. And they've done nothing with it.
And,
Is that along 110?
yeah.
Yeah.
One on
One
110
was
and one
Millworks,
is
Millworks,
Chris Sewell's.
Yeah.
and the old Very Fine, right.
Do they expire after any amount of time, or can they just hold on to these for as long as they would like?
I'm actually not sure about that. I can tell you that the ones from Westford Valley Marketplace came with a provision. They have to do it in a year. So I don't believe the other ones have that on there, so I believe they are just out there. But they were site-specific to those
Right, I remember they were
locations.
site-specific.
So you haven't heard about Westford Valley Marketplace yet, because we just got that notification from the state, so that will be on your March 10th agenda, that the state has changed the language, and you will hear what they're suggesting. But we can check on whether there's any expiration on these other ones. I mean,
don't
you are
think
the
there is,
local
but I'm not
licensing
sure.
authority, but, right.
All right.
Can I just ask Gary a question?
Yes.
How close is it to that childcare center where you are? Because there's some rules about that.
You're probably half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away.
Because I wasn't quite sure.
Sorry.
what he said.
Yeah.
So they had fallen down.
It's on the-
The backers said you're shaking
No,
their
it's not
heads
that
no.
section.
Okay.
It's not that far.
Yeah, and just so the board's aware, I am in the process of developing this. I recently acquired it, less than 30 days ago. It has been sitting in my father's possession for, quite a while. He's not in a position to do anything with it anymore. I want to get it going. It's been something that I've wanted for a long time. I've been in the process. It's been surveyed. I am 80%, 90% ready to go with this property. I'm just trying to look for a direction to go. Route 40 is, it's a sticky situation where to go. I've been involved with the EDC. They've been in touch with me, so I'm just trying to find out which direction to take the property. So it's not something that's going to be sitting dormant for much longer. I'm hoping to have, as soon as I get permitting and everything else, I'm hoping to have land cleared by summer and foundations put in. So it's not something I'm looking to hold off on. I want to move forward with it. I just feel it's a perfect It's a perfect location for a liquor license, for a local restaurant, something that's town-friendly. We're not looking to put up a franchise. Mary Jo had a diner for 17 years. I go, since I married her a year and a half ago, everywhere I go, she's like, you and Mary Jo's Diner, you and Mary Jo's Diner. So that's something we'll look to bring back. The way I develop the land is probably going to be dependent on, if the liquor license becomes, if we can anchor it, if we can anchor the site down with a decent restaurant and eating establishment, it's got to go in one direction. If not, we have to take it in a different direction.
So how big is the parcel there?
It is 5 acres. We are looking to develop close to 30,000 square feet in 3 different phases. And like I said, I've been working close with Land Tech and Melissa Robbins over at the lawyer's office, and Jeff Morissette. I've been in touch with them, frequently to figure out where we can go with it. It's going to be, contingent on parking, how many square feet I can get in. There is wetlands in the back. I am looking to put, I am on a zoning board agenda because I'm looking to put my house in the back part of that property. So I have to get variance from the zoning board to, from the zoning board to be able to put a residential home on a commercial piece of property. So there's a lot of moving parts going on right now. And
So, besides, assume for a minute that you get your variance, okay? So besides your home and a restaurant, anything else planned for that property?
The only things definitive right now for this is my company, my business, CSA Graphics, and, it depends on if the variance goes through with my home. Right now, those are the only two things guaranteed.
So, but your business will run out of your home and not out of a separate building?
Possibly. Those are my intentions, but I'm trying to, but that is, like I said, I've been talking close with the town manager and everything else. But we are looking to put CSA Graphics close, where it says 478, there's an existing piece of property, there's a building, it's a house of cards ready to fall down that I need to get taken down. We're considering putting CSA Graphics there.
So,
But that's the only thing definitive right now, is that I want to move CSA Graphics, that my business is going in a different direction. We're catering more towards first responders. I've contracted with the Fire Academy, State Police, and we're catering more towards the first responders, so I need to be in more of a central location for this. But that's my only definitive right now, because the zoning board has me in a holding pattern for my house and this board, where it stands in the town meeting for the liquor license.
so you said you wanted to develop 30,000 square feet?
That's
a 30,000 square foot building, is that correct?
No, it's going to be done in phases, and that's what I've been working with Land Tech right now. We're trying to figure out the best fit for the property. It looks like a nice piece of property, and, just so you know, we're not going after any really heavy variances. We're not going after any setback requirements. We're meeting all the guidelines. We're staying away from the wetlands. We're not seeking any relief, any substantial relief anywhere.
So I just want to understand, is it a 30,000 square foot commercial building, and if the only thing going there is a restaurant, am I understanding this correct, that you're looking for a liquor license for a 30,000 square foot restaurant?
No, there will be, about where the 484 is on that piece of property, there is just a little history about this property. My father bought this property back in 1984, and he was going to develop it, and he has drawings for a 60,000 square foot building on here. Back at the time, he could put up 60,000 square feet. There was a 10,000 gallon a day septic system, where approximately where that 484 is on that map. So I'm trying to work around that septic system, so I don't have to, get rid of that septic system. I don't want to put up 30,000 square feet and have it sit vacant, so I'm going to be putting up on phases, and that's how I'm going to approach a planning board with it, in phases. So it's going to be, it's going to be set up in 3 phases of how we're going to do it. So it's going to be approximately 4 or 5 buildings, 4,000 or 5,000 square feet apiece.
Whoa, wait a minute. I just asked you if there was going to be only 2 buildings, and then you said you may be moving your business there, and that would be 3 buildings. That was what I thought I understood you to say, but now you're saying in phasing this, there could be 4 or 5 buildings, so now are we looking at 8 buildings on this property?
No, I'm guessing 4. Oh, like I said, I am in developmental stages with Land Tech, and we're trying to figure out the best situation for this piece of property.
So I have a recommendation.
I think the same one I'm probably going to make, but go ahead.
You know, to ask us to issue a liquor license for a set of plans that aren't there, just in what is a lot of residential nearby, just doesn't seem to be the right time. And it doesn't seem like you have enough figured out about what you want to do or where it's going to convince, at least me, that that's the right thing to do right now. I'm not saying that it's not the right thing in the future, but I'm certainly not prepared, based on what you've decided here, to say, yeah, I think it would be a good thing to do, or at least to recommend to the town.
And I guess I was going the same direction, is that I would be more comfortable if I could see a little bit more definitive plans from you in terms of what's going to happen with the property. I hear you, and I understand that part of what you're trying to plan for is whether a direction you take is whether you have a liquor license or not. But I guess my general concern is, just exactly, how you're going to develop this piece of property, and, how many buildings we're talking about on the piece of property, and what the uses of the property are going to be. And I guess I need some comfort in that before I can kind of move forward.
But I just, in my defense, I'm not a fan of spending good money after bad.
I understand.
I don't want to
And I don't want you to.
Well, that's what that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to develop this property, specifically based around the liquor license. And then we could come back and you guys could say, no, I don't want that. And I completely understand, and that's
we're tying to a
understandable.
liquor license for a particular location that is going to be there forever, potentially. So, I don't know what I'm approving.
But this is how I understand it, and, correct me if I'm wrong. The town petitions for a liquor license on the specific piece of property under this, and then we petition the state, and the state grants us that liquor license.
Right.
And then that is approved to me, that liquor license is granted to me after approval of my site.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So you don't,
After we don't get to go back after the state, we don't get to go back and.
but you don't have to grant me that liquor license.
Right.
If you're not comfortable with the plans that I have, have been approved through I have to go through planning board, I have to go through zoning board, I have to go through all these hoops to prove to you that this liquor license, is gonna be a perfect fit for this piece of land.
Right. But then I also have to feel comfortable that that's the right place for a liquor license.
And then you don't have to grant it to me if you choose not to.
But if I'm already not comfortable that this is the right place for a liquor license, I'm not sure why personally I would vote to recommend. Well, that's how I feel too.
I mean, that's where I stand. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm here to figure out which direction I'm going, with this, and I'm, like I said, I've been working with EDC, I've been working with zoning board, I'm working with a lot of people to develop this property. It can go many different ways. I'm hoping to go the direction that I want, but I'm not here to, I don't have the pockets, I just don't have the pockets deep enough to keep going back to engineers and lawyers and redesigning this piece of property. So I want to know the direction I'm going to go in. So if, and with the liquor license, I'm going this road. Without the liquor license, I'm going that road.
So I just have one other comment, and that is, I don't know whether Route 40, even though it's maybe zoned as such, is, without hearing from a bunch of abutters and other residents around Route 40, whether I would want Route 40 to represent what this may become.
What do you mean? What may become?
I'm not sure I want Route 40 to have a restaurant that has a liquor license, without hearing from a lot of abutters and residents.
And you're...
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, but you will hear from them.
So I think at this
Before I
point, we
approve the
could
liquor license.
hear this evening from residents who are here. I think there's some folks lined up to speak. And then this is a citizen's petition, so whatever our board recommends or doesn't recommend tonight, this is going to town meeting, and that will be an important opportunity for our board and the whole community to have this discussion about Route 40, and I think it'll be a very helpful and healthy conversation for the town to have. And you'll certainly, whatever we decide or recommend, you'll have your opportunity to make the case to the community, and if this board doesn't recommend it, but you convince town meeting to move forward, then we'll certainly respect that, and, that application will move forward to the state. So I think we're engaged in the process at this point. If everyone's in agreement, I'd like to hear from the abutters, because when you look at the parcel and see the number of people that live around there, I think the other conversations we've had for, the one in front of Very Fine, we don't have that type of residential neighborhood around the other liquor licenses that we've petitioned the state for.
No,
So
and just as the board knows, I'm happy to answer. As I progress with this and as we move along, I'm happy to answer any questions. I mean, my cell phone's available anywhere. You can reach out to me through Facebook. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it. Like I said, I'm a holding pattern until I decide what to do, but like I said, I'm not a fan. I'm not in a position to go, dumping good money after bad into this site. I know the two directions I want to go, so I'm just, this is my first direction, so I'm hoping that, the board will, reach out to me for any questions or any more specifics they want. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Great, well, let's hear from some of the abutters here. Just please introduce yourself and tell us your address.
Vikram Venkat Subramanian, 470 Groton Road, Westford, Mass. So my question stems from the fact that this license has no restrictions on whether it's a restaurant, liquor shop, bar, whatever, number one. Number two, it's being applied for by a third-party entity, not CSA Graphics. It's for Well-Ed Inc. And it can apply to anybody who can potentially own the company, Well-Ed, or its successors, right? So it's not just about what the current plans are, it's also about what the future plans are that apply to that property. My question actually is, if the license is granted and if any of the adjacent properties are purchased, which now opens this up to being a 10 to 12 acre lot total, will that liquor license and the zoning apply, or will it be taken into consideration for rezoning at a later point in time to make this a much bigger commercial establishment or establishments?
So if two adjacent parcels are purchased, that doesn't, the zoning doesn't, they don't merge in terms of zoning, do they?
Yeah, I don't know what the zoning is. Jeff is right out in the hall. If we could grab Jeff.
He heard us.
He heard us. Hi, Jeff.
Glad you're still here.
Jeff Ireset, Director of Land Use Management. What questions can I answer for you?
So this resident was asking if another parcel, especially if you look at 472,
476.
And then all those in between, and eventually ended up, Mr. Lavelle purchased all of those and ended up with 10 acres, would that all become commercial, or the industrial zoning that is?
So, first of all, whether someone acquires property or not, it doesn't change the underlying zoning. So it is whatever it is. So I don't know if we can turn on, if we hit the layers.
I was just going to ask, is all that property along there IA?
Well, hopefully we can take a quick peek.
Okay.
Which layer you want on, Jeff?
Should be zoning. Here we go. Okay, so that's,
I haven't.
so I believe that's all Residence A. So acquiring adjacent properties would not change the character. It would still be residentially zoned, and if they, unless I'm not reading that correctly, it looks like only so he's 478 Groton Road, and that is is that IA? The abutting property to the left would be Residence A to Pierce, so that wouldn't change that. And that would require, I believe, Mr. Lavelle is proposing a number of uses. I don't have the determination form in front of me, but as I recall, I think many of the uses separately may be allowed by right in that zoning district, including the residential use. That's all allowed. I think where he may need some relief from the zoning board is having multiple principal uses on a single lot. But I think, unlike some other applications, I think generally speaking, individually the uses are allowed in that zoning district. It's just putting more than one of them on the same lot that I think triggers that review. Okay. And then depending on how many phases of development he proposes at a time, in addition to site plan review from the planning board, that would likely, it could potentially trigger additional special permit review from the planning board. So, I don't know if that
clarifies that. Yeah, thanks.
Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
You
Jeff.
should probably stay, Jeff.
All right, other questions about this?
Hi, yes, I'm Mary Dominici. I'm in a butter at number 6 Russell's Way, directly abutting the property right there, correct. Couple questions. As a direct abutter, maybe I don't know the rules, but I was not notified that a petition regarding a parcel directly abutting me was up for any review. That would be my first question.
Are we required for this type of petition to notify
No,
butters?
Okay.
I mean, you would be notified if they actually came down to coming to the board for a license, but, no. But you should go to town meeting.
Yeah, okay.
This will be
So would
correct.
I have been apprised of the town meeting?
Yes, you will be sent a town meeting warrant to your home.
Okay, that was my first question. And second question was, you know, in light of the fact that there's no plan for what's going in there, you know, my suggestion would be to table this, because there's no plan for what's going in there. Mr. Lavelle and his wife did approach my husband and I and told us that they were contemplating a residence and a commercial use for their company, and that's all. So, and that was 2 weeks ago, so.
Right. So we can't
We
table
can't
this?
table it?
Because Mr. Lavelle has the right to bring this to the town
To town
meeting for the
meeting.
entire
Okay.
town to vote on, but what we're deciding tonight is whether or not this board will recommend it, which the town meeting will be informed whether or not the board recommends moving forward
Town
with
meeting
this.
ultimately makes the decision,
Okay.
not us.
Right, so I agree with Vikram that the rest of the road west of 478 is residential, so that would be a concern. And the other abutters, obviously surrounding it, are residential. And there is also a liquor license, as you mentioned, at Rapid Refill. So, you know, I agree, why would we need another liquor license in the neighborhood? You know, there's ones at Nabnasset, et cetera. So I think that was my main question. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Yes, additional comments?
Just one question. So Patty, we heard this discussion about liquor licenses already at Upper Refill. This is a different, this is a restaurant? as
This
opposed
is a
to-
restaurant
So just to be
license.
clear, we are looking at, there's no option for Gary to put in another liquor store. It would be a restaurant license, so.
Come on up.
Hi, Catherine Brewer, I'm on Groton Road. To
What
answer the question
what
about
number, Groton?
462, to answer the question about how far the childcare center is, I know that was something to ask, it's 0.3 miles. Okay, on Google Maps, it's 0.3 miles. And also, the adjoining properties, if it's not something that's able to be, at the moment, rezoned, as Jeff had said, is that where it was acquired by family, is the additional properties next to it still family-owned? And if so, if that was gifted or inherited, could at that time a member on a specific board for planning allow for that to be rezoned and petition for that to be rezoned? And if so, is that a
Let's
possibility?
bring Jeff back in. He's
You should just sit down, Jeff.
So, if I heard that correctly, you're looking to find out if either acquiring adjacent property or property that's already in common ownership, if that has any bearing on? Don't believe it does. Each parcel is looked at separately in terms of zoning and its uses. So, and again, any opportunity to try to pursue permitting on the adjacent properties, if they're residentially zoned, that would require substantial relief from the zoning board, because generally speaking, you know, it's limited to typically residential uses or agricultural or other exempt uses. So to expand that commercially where it's residentially zoned, that would be very problematic in terms of permitting.
You know, I already know, there's a lot of agita on Route 40 to begin with because of what Chelmsford potentially is trying to do with a lot of the residential homes that were there, and I know that has caused a lot of concern for people on the Westford side of Route 40, so it's just another.
Especially with the complications from Newport. With that also being said, with that land, I know it was mentioned that a significant amount of that land is wetland. And I know that because my property is on that same side, and as you walk through those woods, and you walk all the way up Russell's Way, a significant amount of that property is wetlands, and there are community trails through there, and there is a significant amount of land being destroyed in Westford, and just making sure that we're taking into account that we're conserving what is there to keep Westford healthy and to make sure that we're doing what's best for the community around the property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
I'm really sorry, I didn't answer part of the question, I believe, about rezoning. That would typically take a 2/3 vote of town meeting.
Yep. Any other comments? Any other comments from the board? So do I have a motion
Make
to
a motion
recommend?
not to recommend.
Motion to not recommend. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of not recommending?
Aye.
All those opposed to not recommending? Anyone abstaining from not
I'm
recommending?
abstaining right now.
Okay.
You're what?
Abstaining.
Just abstaining.
Thank you.
He's outstanding, is what he said.
All right. Article 22?
Yep, so Article 22 was the citizen petition to clarify the MOU between the town and Westford Cat.
Ray Mascola, 10 Adams Lane. So we're going to reword this as we get to the town meeting, but the idea is to clarify the reality of Westford Cat. The current memorandum of understanding doesn't include local news or professional journalism. It just wasn't there for whatever reason when it was created. So we want to reword this and bring it to town meeting to clarify the reality of the operation of Westford Cat.
So there was some legal concern about
Yes.
this
Yeah.
citizens petition, correct?
We did, and I unfortunately, I don't have the opinion in my book, but my recollection, what John Giorgio said, is that this is a contract with the town. The Selectmen and WCAT board entered this contract, so town meeting cannot force a change in this contract. I mean, town meeting could suggest things or,
Pass a
you know,
resolution.
pass a
Resolution.
resolution, but it is a contract, so unless both parties agree to open the contract, you can't force that.
Okay, so can we get some sort of recommendation from the town meeting? How would that be done? Because we want to move to the point at some point where the memorandum of understanding is clarified, because for some reason I wasn't involved then, when it was created, the word news is not even in there.
Well, I did give, whoever, Diane, I believe I gave John Giorgio's opinion, whoever sent this to me, but happy to have you talk to council about it, but
We'll work with you on this, on a resolution.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could do a resolution again, but
Okay.
you can't force WCAT to open this contract.
Okay.
But we're
We'll
happy to
talk
work
there.
with council with you on this.
Thanks.
Okay.
So what do we do with this?
I think we,
Nothing?
No action?
Yeah, I don't think we know what
yeah.
the recommendation, what the resolution is, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so now we have a series of zoning bylaws?
Yep, so where's Jeff?
He's coming back.
Jeff is in the hot seat again, and a number of zoning bylaws that Jeff's here to walk us through, starting with Article 26.
Yep.
Can I get a clarification on the previous article? Did this, on the Article 22, will there be a motion under the petition, or did the petitioner decide not to make a motion and just do a resolution? Did we not get to that?
I don't
Taking
know
notes.
what
Okay,
the
I just want to make sure.
petitioner
Thank
is
you.
doing.
Good evening, Jeff Morissette, Director of Land Use Management.
Rebecca Cheney, Town Planner.
And we're here tonight to discuss some proposed zoning bylaw amendments, and I'm not sure if you would like us to just provide an overview of all 6 of them, or if you'd like to take them one at a time, whatever your preference is.
I think we should take them one at a time.
Great. So the first one relates to lot frontage, and as recommended by the Zoning Board of Appeals and advised by Town Council, and Planning Board is supportive as well, we simply want to add the word continuous in Appendix C of our zoning bylaw table to clarify what we believe the intent has always been, and that the minimum lot frontage requirement should be satisfied by frontage that is continuous, not some here, 50 feet here, another down the roadways or on the backside of a different lot. So this came up recently at a zoning board petition, and it's a housekeeping item, and we think it's totally consistent with how it's been administered and interpreted, and it's kind of self-explanatory, and if you have any questions.
Any comments or questions?
Can I just ask an overall question? Has the planning board looked at all 6 of these, and have they voted either to approve or recommend?
So the planning board has looked at all 6 of these, and they did review and suggest some changes to one of them. They
Okay.
held off taking a final vote, though, in the interest of keeping the public hearing open to March 2nd in case someone who wasn't able to attend the first hearing.
So I guess, well, I'd like to hear the rest of them.
Sure.
I think that we should wait for the final planning board recommendation before we take any action on them.
I agree.
It's fine.
It's fine.
So do you want to just read through and highlight?
But I would like to hear the rest of them.
Sure. Do you have any, well, regardless of what planning board's final recommendation is, do you have any questions or, as we go along, important to us
Yeah,
to
we
hear
can
them?
pause
So-
and
Yeah.
ask for
Oh,
comment.
definitely, yeah.
Okay. The second one is about special permit lapses.
So under our current zoning bylaw, special permit lapses after 2 years, once it's been issued. So in 2016, the state legislature amended Chapter 40A, Section 9, to allow municipalities to extend or increase that lapse period to 3 years. So this just would sort of put our bylaws in line with state regulations. Let's see, the next is gross floor area. So this relates to clarifying some language in section 3.3 of the zoning bylaw, which is about accessory dwelling unit standards. So we're just looking to replace 2 undefined terms in the zone, in that section of the bylaw, with a defined term to clarify the language around gross floor area. And then the last one that I am in charge of tonight is regulating massage establishments. So massage is not an allowed use anywhere in town. We have currently, from what we've been able to determine, 16 massage establishments, 5 of which have received variances from the zoning board. So we have more or less 11 out there that haven't been permitted. So before we embark on any enforcement, we wanted to bring it to the planning board to see if they would prefer to regulate rather than to prohibit outright. So we're looking to see, currently we're sort of in negotiations about where and how it would be allowed or not, if it'll be special permit or by right in certain districts or not.
So is this the one that's still under discussion with the planning board?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll wait for it.
So, yeah.
I got lots of questions, but
Well, we're happy to
Well,
hear
yeah,
the
we'd-
questions.
we'd rather hear them.
Yeah.
We should, so that you can refer them.
well, so how did these get in to begin with if they're not permitted? I know it's before your time.
Well, I don't believe that they have to go to town clerk to get, I mean, they do have to do a DBA, I think, but they don't always, and I'm not
That's
calling you out.
I mean, I think these can also be spas.
Yeah, I think they
Yeah, I
came in as spas
Massage
that
and
offer
so-
massage
Not
services.
that
Well,
they
like there's
come-
one, I think it's a massage place because it's called massage therapy.
Right, is
Yes,
that-
and that's under the same umbrella,
but is
massage
that one
establishment,
with a
massage
special
therapy.
permit?
Which one?
The massage therapy in Cornerstone, I think it is.
I'd have to check, I don't know offhand, but,
I think
I'm just kinda curious how these things
sometimes they
happen.
don't tell us that they're doing it and they just start doing it.
Right, and
yes,
so,
9 Cornerstone did get a variance, yeah.
so then if, what happens if this doesn't go through as being allowed to have massage, once these get rewritten, these other businesses, they get kicked out?
Well, if the planning board and town meeting goes for allowing it by right in certain districts, and there are massage establishments in those districts already, then they would just be allowed to continue. If they have to get a special permit, then they would have to come get a special permit. And if town meeting determines that they don't want to allow it anywhere, then those establishments would be subject to enforcement and have to come and get a variance.
Okay, so I didn't read this one in particular, but is there a specific definition of what, the definition of massage
There is, yep.
in here? Okay,
It is defined in the zoning bylaw, yes.
okay.
Any other questions?
Elizabeth Leslie.
Leslie, yes.
Well, speaking from having
You need to
been-
tell us who you
Oh,
are.
I'm sorry, Leslie Thomas, 8A Colony
This is your
Drive.
first time speaking.
Right, I haven't spoken in public before. I think what's happening now is, I mean, nail salons may have a massage person there, and they do some. So I don't know whether it's, you know, I mean, districts are probably part of it, but the type of establishment it is, because there could be a massage parlor that's all that, or it could just be that, like, I know some nail salons have someone that does it once in a while by appointment. So I think there needs to be regulations because there's so many different aspects of it. And a lot of the wellness centers also do that. And I think chiropractors also have massage people. So
And medical,
Huh?
medical facilities as
Yeah.
well, physical
Yeah.
therapy.
So there's a
medical
huge
facilities.
realm, so I agree there needs to be some regulations.
And if I may, she just raised a good point. Like, a lot of times, they could start off as an existing business that's allowed by right. They start in one room, they start offering these occasional services, it does well, you know, it expands, and so suddenly you have like a massage therapy establishment that gets a foothold as sort of an accessory use to the principal use that may expand over time, and it's very difficult to track and monitor. So it will take a lot of zoning enforcement activity, and there's clearly, the zoning board approved 5 of these. People are using them, so we thought it's time to at least ask the question before we commence with all that zoning enforcement.
Yeah, good.
So.
Great, thank you.
Well, back to
Article
me.
30.
Yep.
So, growth management bylaw, I believe this original provision was adopted in 1996, and it was amended and or extended several times. Obviously, there was huge amount of development late 80s and through the 90s, and so that was obviously in reaction to that, to give the town an opportunity to sort of limit the number of building permits that would be issued in a year, give them time to study and plan for the effect of that sudden growth. So, however, it did expire in 2009, I believe. And so it is now taking up 6 pages of our zoning bylaw for something that is not in effect. And honestly, when we have been pursuing grant opportunities, because increasing housing inventory is a very important goal for the state right now, we are seeing specific questions asking if any part of our zoning bylaw limits or restricts development of residential units. And so we're forced to say, well, yes, it does, but we try to explain it away, saying it's no longer in effect. So whether you're for or against the growth management bylaw, the one that's in effect now, well, it doesn't have any effect, and so it can only be dinging us on these applications. So we think the right thing to do is to simply delete that section for the here and now, and then go from there.
Any comments, questions?
Okay.
31 and 32 look very similar.
They are. So, as you may recall, this board requested that the planning board sponsor a zoning bylaw amendment to address some of the concerns that you folks heard about short-term rentals, particularly in residential neighborhoods. So, they accepted your challenge. And we have some draft language in front of you. It's actually somewhat complicated, but the short version is this. First, we're looking to define what short-term rentals are, and what started off as essentially renting a unit or part of a unit for not more than 31 consecutive days. The planning board, after they opened their hearing, they thought it would be better to say not more than 27 days, with the intention being that they didn't want to prohibit monthly rentals. So to allow for February, they thought 28 days not being counted as short-term would be better. They had some concerns with home sales and some of the arrangements that come into place at time. They thought it would just make sense, and since there's nothing on the books now formally, they thought it was a good place to start, monthly. So after defining what short-term rental would be, the next step would be to regulate. So where might it be allowed and where might it not be allowed? Well, the first thought, based upon comments from you folks, was to prohibit short-term rentals as a principal use in the residential zoning districts. So in other words, if someone were to rent out all the rooms, not be owner occupied, and they were just renting on a daily basis to whoever comes there, that would be prohibited, okay? In all the non-residential zoning districts, the thought was to allow it by special permit, a public hearing process with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So on a case-by-case basis, they could come up with their determination. They would have a lot of discretion. They could see what has or hasn't already been improved in a given area, whether it's commercial or industrial. And case-by-case, they have a lot of discretion to impose conditions. Then the next step was to look at it in terms of accessory uses. So accessory is normally subordinate or incidental to the use, and or sometimes 30% or less in terms of looking at gross floor area. See that term? Came up again. So for instance, if someone were to rent out so much of their house that it exceeded, was the majority, then one could make a case that even though it could be owner occupied, say there's 5 bedrooms and they're renting 4, the commissioner could still make a determination that perhaps that isn't accessory. And so that might be an overreach. The other thought was that by allowing special permits as an accessory use, perhaps in residential zoning districts, a bed and breakfast type establishment could potentially be allowed because if it is owner occupied, I think it's natural to think that bed and breakfast activities, it is definitely accessory. Someone is there, they're living there, and so this wouldn't serve to prohibit a bed and breakfast establishment from in a residential neighborhood. It would still require a public hearing process, the butters would get notified, and the zoning board would have a lot of options from imposing conditions of approval. And the last thing that we considered was we thought it was proper to offer an overlay district for the Summer Village seasonal community. They're seasonal by nature, essentially not more than 6 months of the year. It's an integral part of their community. They regulate, monitor, self-police better than we could honestly ever do. They have quite a reputation, and it wouldn't have the same effect there as it would in, say, a residential cul-de-sac. So to us, it makes sense for the cottages only to allow short-term rentals by right. And so the reason why there was a suggested second article is that if the first one, people could be potentially supportive of an overlay district for Summer Village for seasonal cottages, but they might be opposed to, so that way it would still, there's perhaps as many as 20 cottages that get rented for off and on a few weeks, and that's to offset their carrying costs. So it's a big part of their culture, and we don't think it would have the same detrimental effect, and it would spare a lot of, again, zoning enforcement for something that doesn't really seem to make sense to a lot of us. So that's the high-level version.
So if we pass Article 31, then Article 32
Yes.
doesn't?
However whatever
even
language they
entertain.
use, indefinitely
Okay.
pass over, or,
Okay.
yes.
All right, that makes more sense. Questions or comments about these? Thank you to the planning board for
Yes, thank
you.
tackling that. I know we kicked the
There's one
ball to
from the
you.
audience.
Yes, come on up, Diane.
Quick question.
Can you come up to the mic?
Up to the mic.
Tell us who you are.
Diane Wood, 122 Depot. Jeff, this only applies to Summer Village.
The overlay district would only apply to the cottages at the Summer Village property.
So do we have a zoning bylaw as it relates to property, homeowners' property in town at all? I mean, do we already have an existing,
Regarding the short-term rentals?
any short-term rental outside of Summer Village?
Currently,
nothing. Sorry, if you
Go ahead. No, you go.
So nothing exists in writing now, but our zoning bylaw does state, I believe it's section 3.1 or 3.11, that states any use that is not expressly permitted here is thereby prohibited. So working with state definitions and town council, the town has taken the position that short-term rentals, albeit we're kind of following the state's definition, which is not more than 31 days, is prohibited unless they secure relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the proposal right now is to change the number to not more than 27 days and to prohibit it, as I mentioned, residentially. So that would be the thought, is to prohibit it as a principal use residentially to address those issues.
Sure. Sorry, my only question is, so the way this is written, are there other towns or cities that have instituted regulations related to short-term rentals that you guys have looked at, and how we fit relative to the best practices elsewhere?
So they vary widely. We did look at a number of them. Some of them are extremely complicated and lengthy, and a lot of them don't necessarily match Westford. We were looking for something that was, we wanted to kind of dip our feet in the water and start simple and see if additional work may be needed to try to think of, I mean, there were some very complicated examples, to try to think of all the what-ifs.
Yeah.
We're really beyond that right now. I mean, we know we have the summer village situation. We wanted to provide an opportunity for perhaps bed and breakfast establishments with benefit of a public hearing process, and to come up with a reasonable time frame that would hopefully address the concerns that you heard. Essentially, a monthly basis would be okay.
Okay.
So we thought it was a good place to start.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Anything
No.
from the audience? Yes, Leslie?
Leslie Thomas, 8A Old Colony Drive. In the Realtors Association in Boston, they're now, I know, have you looked at the tax thing? Because now they're, in some areas, mainly more cities, are looking at taxing the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs. I think there's a whole thing on that, on the taxes and how they're now starting to tax them for doing Airbnbs individually. So I don't know if you've looked at that or not, but.
So we're aware of it, and we've worked with council on that, but that's not really part of the zoning amendment. It's separate from that.
So I would just say, Leslie, that actually, though anybody that rents their property through an Airbnb, that tax is collected and it comes to the town through our excise. So we're already getting that and it is collected through, but this is different in that we're trying not to allow this except very limited basis, but it is collected through our excise.
All right. Well, we will hold off on voting on these articles. I don't know if we'll get it in the book because we don't have a meeting. We won't
They're
have
not
a
meeting till
before
March
then.
2nd.
March 2nd, yeah.
So,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the very clear explanation.
Perhaps we can take our votes at a March meeting so we can have our discussion, any further discussion publicly, and then announce it as needed at town meeting. All right, Article 34, the disposition of 63 Main Street. Would the citizen petitioner like to come up?
Ellen Hardy of 39 Main Street, and the purpose of this article is simply that what we see, as the petitioners see, is the next logical step after the work that was done by the 63 Main Street Task Force. Just for voters who are watching, this is the building that is next door to the Rodenbush, which burned 4 years ago next month. And then the town purchased in the fall of 2018. And following that, your board appointed a task force who did a great deal of outreach. And they did a survey that was then submitted back to this board. And what the survey results showed, there were 8 options that were asked people to, it wasn't an either or. Did you agree, disagree, strongly disagree? And the only one of those options that received more than 50% was the question that said, sell this property as a single-family residence with an historic restriction, and that was responded positively to by 54.2%. So we thought it was time to ask town meeting if they agreed with that, and that's exactly what this warrant article is to ask the town to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell it as a single-family residence with a historic restriction. And further, one of the other questions was, do you think that the back part of this land, part of it should be retained because it is adjacent to this town hall and to the parking behind it? And so incorporated into this, we also incorporated the option 1, I believe it was, of the 3 parking plans, the least number of spaces, that adds 32 to the existing lot. I have spoken personally with the owner of the property at 59 Main Street, which is the next closest to Town Hall. It would go behind her property. Thank you very much, Eric. And she does not feel that that would in any way, that additional extension, it's a ways from her barn and from her house. And she sees no concern about that, so there is no opposition from her at this point to that. So that is what we're asking town meeting to do, is to take this back to the beautiful house that it was when it was built in 1897, have it be a single-family residence, and have it be occupied again and loved.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yep.
I wanted to start with a few comments since I was the chair of the task force, and my opinion is that I'm not quite ready to move forward with your proposal, Ellen. I would like to wait one more year, and I have a few considerations that the task force had discussed, and the first being that the survey results were never intended as a final, that the select board and the task force would recommend, that top vote getter. It was never presented in that way. And when you look at the cultural considerations on the survey, because people could choose more than one, we don't know if the same people chose everyone, or if you could add those up. It's not that clear. But I think the task force recognized that the community was also open to a cultural use for that property, and we recognize the community would be very happy to just put it back to a single-family home. That's certainly had favorable results. When the task force came back to our board, we had said that there were some members that were interested in continuing to pursue that cultural option, to bring forward an option. That work hasn't happened yet, but there are individuals who are prepared and ready and willing to do that work. And I think that exploration should happen just for the community to have a more complete picture of what options we're looking at. And that could be happening in parallel with the other piece of that was the school administration, where the school committee has expressed interest in having that site considered for school administration. And I believe we're recommending to the town that we appropriate funds to start that study for the school admin building, which hopefully we'll have that information back within a year. So both of those, I would like to have both of those pieces of information before making this decision. And with that, I would add 51 Main. I know our board has supported moving forward with 51 Main. If that project does not pass town meeting and/or the ballot, we may be back to the starting place with looking at town center and how do we connect all these properties, how do we use these properties. So I would hate to make this decision before, and then realize later on the warrant that we're going to have to, that we may want to keep that property in play as we do this town center planning. And then with regards to the parking, there was more support for the larger option, not this option, but the one that connected Town Hall with Rodenbush, this. When our task force looked at it, because it's further from the road and would leave more of the trees and greenery in front of it. And if you go stand at the end of the town hall parking lot in the woods right there, you realize just how close that extension of the design you had put up, Ellen. When you're standing right there and imagining those trees being taken down in a parking lot and you're looking in the 59 Main Street's backyard, then you realize how close it is. It doesn't look so close when you're looking at the map here, but once you stand in the woods, you realize it's very close. And so this design, the feedback we received was that it was hidden. We keep all that greenery in front of it, wouldn't be as noticeable from the road, and also respectful to whatever happened in front of it, but we were holding off on any parking recommendation until we definitively knew what was happening with the house, because if that house is going to become a public building, then we would not put the parking way at the back of the property. And then right now the property is stabilized. Don Mills designed that temporary roof for us, so I think in the past our board has recognized that the $5,000 a year carrying cost was worth it if it gives us another year to answer these questions. I think a year from now we would be in a better position as a community. Hopefully we'll have resolved some of these other questions and then could make this decision.
If I just can respond to that, the petitioners are well aware of all of those parameters, and it's exactly why we want to go forward at this town meeting. We think it should be residential. We don't think it should be municipal. We do not want that additional parking there. So we think that what has been there since Donald Cameron built that house in 1897, or actually it was a wedding present, is what we want to maintain. So we know very well what those alternatives are. We don't happen to agree with them. We don't think 63 Main Street is the place for those. So that's why we're asking town meeting to make that decision with us. Thank you.
Yeah, just one point of clarification. So the school administration study, just to be clear, isn't focused on that site. It's more of a locational study than anything else. So I just want to be clear on that.
But that is one of the sites that we might look at, so I guess, I'm just thinking I'm with you, that it's premature to make the decision. We discussed the cultural use, we had stormwater and budgets intervene, we not give it the time it deserves. We should focus on that, and I don't want to take a possible location off the table prematurely for, for admin use either. So I'm not opposed to that becoming a private residence. I'm just not ready to make the decision right now, so.
Yeah, I guess I feel like that's one parking option that's in there, but I don't feel like there's been a consensus and a sort of a community-based study of whether that parking option is the best or not, at least from my point of view. And I'd like to see that discussion rather than have sort of one enthusiastic, passionate group of people sort of make one choice about parking in town center.
Well, and obviously, once this motion gets before the town meeting, it's amendable. So if somebody wanted to say that it would be residential, but that the parking option would be the 54 space or whatever that was, that could certainly be discussed at town meeting time. So it doesn't come to town meeting as one ball of wax. It's amendable like any other motion before the town meeting.
Understood. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion not to recommend.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain?
May I ask one technical question? The wording in this motion has a Scrivener's error in it. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when the article was put together, it was cut and pasted from the motion that was passed at town meeting to purchase the property, and the parcel number is wrong. It's actually tax map 59. So we could do that a couple of ways. It could be made at town meeting, but I would respectfully request that when the selectmen put together the motions, that they simply change that number to 59 and determine it a Scrivener's error that is no way affecting what voters will be voting on. It would save town meeting a little bit of time.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Thank you. So it should be tax map 59, parcel 43. Thank you, Eric, for finding that.
So someone doesn't think we're trying to buy their house.
And I hope we
at
didn't.
town meeting.
I also hope we didn't buy the wrong house in 1928. Thank you both for your time.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ellen. All right, so, Joe, do you want us to look at the order of the warrant before we move on?
Yes.
Any comments about the order?
Not for me.
Not for me.
Nope.
All right, good job.
Awesome, thank you. And
Moderator, any?
All set.
we try to be consistent with prior years. So you are going to vote to sign it tonight, too.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we'll do that after.
Okay. All right, we can move on?
Yes.
Okay. We have a consent agenda, a banner request for the annual Westford Strawberries and Arts Festival, First Parish Church United, Saturday, June 13th, 2020 to Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. Location, First Parish Church. An event, the Westford Boy Scouts of America Troop 437 Spring Bike and Sports Sale Fundraiser. Applicant is Barbara Anderson. The dates are Saturday, April 25th, 2020 to Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. The location's at the J.V. Fletcher Library. We have a town common and bandstand request for the annual Westford Strawberry and Arts Festival. Applicants First Parish Church United on Saturday, June 20th, 2020, with the rain date of Sunday, June 21st, 2020, from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the Westford Boy Scouts of America Troop 437 Spring Bike and Sports Sale Fundraiser. Applicant Barbara Anderson. Date Saturday, May 2nd, 2020, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Move to approve in accordance with
Public safety.
recommendations.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Tom, you're up for an update on Town and School Safety Task Force.
Wow, I guess I'll keep it brief. So the committee continues to work in a really productive way, moving towards a set of recommendations. We had a productive meeting recently, and some good questions came up, some additional clarification and background information is requested. So our next meeting is coming up, and I don't remember the date, but it's
Wait, I wrote it down. Wait a minute.
it's in my calendar, too.
It's
I can
in my
look it up as soon as we're
calendar.
done. If anyone has an interest in participating in that, it'll be posted, I think. Apologize for not having this up.
Oh, because I'm in February, no wonder.
March 5th.
March 5th.
Thank you.
March 5th.
It's 8:30 a.m., right?
Yes.
Here.
So thank you for everyone who's been involved in that. It's been a very productive committee, and I'm not sure whether it'll be this meeting or the next meeting that we'll get to the point where we're ready to make recommendations, but we'll move there and continue to respond to good questions that committee members have.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Nope, thanks.
All right, town managers report.
Okay, so I have a request from the Land Use Management Department to accept gifts from Hanover RS Construction in the amount of $40,000 for transportation services and improvements along 110. I don't know if you want me to keep going.
No, let's
Okay,
vote that one, because I
okay.
think there may be
Yep.
discussion on that.
Move to
next one.
accept.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so then we had a request to authorize us to enter into an electricity supply contract for town and school buildings for 36 months, beginning December 2021.
So this is a routine request we bring to the board every so many years for natural gas and electricity. It got brought up early about renewable options. It's something we've never really explored, perhaps as much as like a 100% renewable, which is quite popular these days. The contracts that we procure currently meet the state's minimum requirements for renewable, which I believe is approximately 15% right now, but that rate changes every year. It's a tiered approach. So we work with an energy broker, Tradition Energy, to procure these contracts. So we've been monitoring the electricity rates because the current contract actually goes to December 21. But we like to lock in the rates as soon as we can when the market looks good so we could forecast future budgets more accurately. So looking into the future, the pricing has been above 9 cents for quite a while, and we were trying to be cautious. Our advisor actually recommended that we sign 6 months ago, but we kept waiting for the market to take a dip. So now it's back to pretty close to what our 21 contract, the one that expires in 21 is. I followed up today about renewable options, and our brokers has advised us that we can add renewable components to our pricing at a future date, but he advised that, or recommended rather, that we take advantage of the conventional rates while they're low, and we could always add a renewable component in the future to this contract. It's amendable. So the recommendation is to take advantage of the rates while it's low.
Yes, Tom.
And thanks for being so responsive on this, Eric. I think it'd be valuable if we could get some quotes as part of the process. Absolutely understand that if we use New England only, you came up with an example that would add really substantial cost. And I don't think anyone's proposing that we make that trade-off in the budget right now necessarily. At least I'm not making that recommendation. But just to know what it is and kind of know what the roadmap can be would be helpful. And you actually surfaced some other interesting options today during the course of the day. So I'm not sure if I'd modify the motion or not, but it would be interesting before we, I guess, will this come back to us if we make the motion as written? Or this authorizes you to go ahead and sign the agreement?
So what we would do tomorrow is go back to the broker, and hopefully our pricing that we have in the packet is still the same. And then Jody can execute the contracts for the supply agreement.
Okay. And then the option then would be, you could come back and say, for this additional cost per kilowatt hour, we could add a renewable component. Is that a subsequent decision that we'd like to make?
Correct. So we could weigh those options.
As long as we have that discussion, then I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, I should have
this.
probably mentioned, so when Tom and I were discussing earlier, there are two different types of renewable energy. So a lot of towns in Massachusetts specifically want renewable energy, specifically from sources here in New England, which could drive the cost of the kilowatt hours up 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So for our budget, it would be almost $1 million more per year.
Yeah.
But the broker said that you can get 100% renewable options from other places, such as upstate New York, at fractions of a penny more than what we're paying. So it's something to consider. We could bring back those options.
So can you just walk through the amendable, how that works? So we're authorizing you to do a 3-year tomorrow. I assume the dates adjust, right? So it's through February of 2023?
Correct. So
begins
it'd
in
be-
Begins
2021.
December 2021.
All right, so we're just locking in right now. So how do the amendments work, do you know?
So the way that it was explained to me is that simply we'd be buying SRECs, solar renewable energy credits, at a future date and applying them to this contract. I didn't think it could be amended either, but I was assured that it can be done at a later date.
Just solar or any
So renewable.
renewable? up to a certain amount, subject to, like?
That I don't know.
And we can make sure that language is in the agreement or
Mhm.
not sign it.
Yeah, you know, I find it hard to believe that, no. I think as long as there's leniency in the agreement, it's just hard to believe that these guys would want to do that because it's to their detriment.
But
So-
it's the leniency that we would be opting for something more expensive, so they would allow us to change the agreement because the
Right.
renewable would
Would be more
increase
expensive.
the
It would
price. We
increase the
wouldn't
price,
be
so they get more.
opening it to lower the price.
So we'd have to be making a decision to essentially decide how much it's worth to us to take on renewable sources. So the cost is going to be higher. It could be as high as 4 cents more per kilowatt hour, depending on where we want to get it from.
I thought a few years ago when we entered one of these contracts, the resident had, with the not the municipal, but the resident had the option to check that they
They can
paid
opt out.
more. Well, but they could pay more for renewable. And that was an option that this is municipal, but on our residents, you could pay more and.
Right. And so I think there are two things, right? Just for
Yeah,
people who are watching,
right.
there's the aggregation contract, which would potentially have these step-up options for people that want to move. You can correct me at any time if I get this wrong.
Yeah, sure.
If people want to add renewable content, they could opt for a plan that has more, they might pay more.
Right.
The excited people in the community can go out and educate people about this, and the vast majority of the power consumed is residential and business. The municipal is a very small part of what's happening in town. So there's a big opportunity to have impact that way.
Yeah.
But coming back to the municipal piece, I guess, I don't want to talk about what you were saying, but I would at least be interested to know that we actually have this option in the contract and how it works. And to the extent we can get some pricing, I'd like to understand that, because I'd like to be able to say to the town, if it's $1 million, in this year, we're not ready, I wouldn't advocate for
any year.
so making trade-offs like that. But if it's fractions of a penny and we want to walk over time into some higher number, you could certainly have that discussion with the town.
So in terms of the municipal buildings, town and school buildings, we can ensure that the contract language is sufficient to meet the needs
Okay.
for amendment.
Okay.
In regards to the electric aggregation program, we're meeting with Good Energy this week, and we've informed them that we're looking to have a tiered structure in place. So that we're looking at the town of Dedham, for example, which has a model where the residents can have the base rate, which is similar to what we have now. They could have a 5% renewable upgrade where it's a small upcharge, or they can opt for the Cadillac version for 100% renewable, but it's going to be a significant increase that they opt to participate in.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so do we want to go ahead and approve this, and then
We'll make sure
at a
the
future
language
date,
is in
we'll
it.
look at the other options
Yeah.
if we want to change it to renewable?
So I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Anything from the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so then we have a request from the Facilities Department to expend $1,430 from the Road and Bush lease to repair an elevator control board.
So, Chris, isn't that under warranty?
That's my question. Why isn't that under warranty, the building, you know?
So our facilities director, Paul, worked with the general contractor, and for whatever reason, this was found not to be under warranty, outside of the warranty period. TRCCI agreed to fund the labor associated with installing the part, but they requested that the town fund the parts themselves, which is why we're here before you.
So obviously it needs to be done.
Right.
But I would like a follow-up on where this just, doesn't make any sense. that
It's
this would not
14
be
months.
part-
It should last
Right.
longer
Yeah.
than 14
Yeah.
months.
Right, so I don't know where it fell through, and whatever it is that we signed, but I would like a little bit of a follow-up on that.
Yeah, we actually also have a similar situation where you won't see the request because it's through the fire department, but they had their state elevator inspection down at the Fletcher Fire Station 1 fail, and
Sure.
we needed a part for that, which was not under warranty again, and that's a $2,500 invoice that we just recently got, so we can certainly do some legwork on these.
Yeah, I
and
think we
update
should
you.
do so, and then next time we do an elevator somewhere.
Make sure it's,
Fully
It's kind of
guaranteed,
ridiculous. Okay.
Okay, so, do you want to approve that, or?
Motion to approve.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then I just wanted to announce that the town manager's office is conducting an analysis of town and school compliance with mass procurement laws for fiscal year 19 and 20. And we are simultaneously offering mandatory, or not offering, we're providing mandatory training to all staff members who are responsible for procuring goods and services. So that's underway.
That's great.
Thank you.
And then a request to approve a couple of contracts, a tentative agreement and collective bargaining agreement for fiscal year 20 to 22 with the Westford Public Works Association, and Hopkinton Forestry and Land Clearing for sale of timber at 60 Forge Village Road in the amount of $7,585, no, $7,585, by the Water Department. Purchase orders CDWG for Microsoft licenses, the amount of $41,649.82, and WL French for removal and disposal of catch basin and street sweepings, the amount of $23,100.
Motion to approve.
I have a question about the land clearing
Yes.
for the sale of timber. Is that an amount that we're paying out or that we're getting in from the sale of timber?
We're getting in.
Okay.
Yeah, they cut the timber and we get it.
Okay, good, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Move to waive reading of correspondence.
Second.
Yeah, I'm sorry, hold on. I think there might have been one that I wanted to mention.
Comcast Xfinity Form 500.
No, I thought about that one a lot, but I wanted to mention, we need to have in the Neshoba Valley
Yeah.
a joint meeting
Yes.
to appoint, and since our moderator's here, we need to have a joint meeting
Right.
to either reappoint or to take applications and consider
Yeah,
another.
we are advertising right now to see if there's anyone else interested.
When's the appointment up? When does it expire?
March, yeah, so I do have a placeholder on March 10th, but we are advertising, reached out to,
Pidgeot, Mrs., oh, Dr. Pidgeot?
Dr. Pidgeot?
yeah,
No, the.
no, I'm having a mental block on his name, but anyway, we're reaching out to him.
Deshane.
Deshane,
Ron
thank you.
Deshane, yeah.
See if he's interested, so that will be on your next agenda.
Excellent, thank you. All right, now we can waive reading the rest of the correspondence. All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have three.